Hello. Oh, squeaky chair. Good start. That means Mike is in the house. If you can hear me, let me know. YouTube's telling me I'm live, but I never quite believe it. Not after the incident a while back. So I can see the chat. I'm live. Excellent. Right, who's in the chat? I saw that Johnny I was in the chat first. Never misses an opportunity. Excellent. And hello, Kim. I've obviously got hello, Debbie. Deb. Now, see, Tracy was talking about how many Tracys there usually is. But we've got a surplus of Debbies. But luckily, we have a Deb, a Debbie and a Deborah. She's very handy.
And a Debbie S.
And a Debbie S. Excellent.
If you got any sleep.
Hello, Paul. I'm whipping through here. Hello, Deb. And Graham. And Neil. Right, get any sleep trying out the new Affinity feature. Not much, Neil. No. Far too excited for my own good. In fact, I've taken some of it a little bit further. You know when you've got a new feature and you think, oh, new feature, and you follow through what it does, and then you think, I wonder if it would do more than that. Yeah, that's me. Anyway, luckily, it did. It did do more, so I'll show you that. That's in the second half bit. Oh, and we're early as well, aren't we? There's actually still a minute to go, but we're early. I didn't actually have much sleep at all, even on the holiday, Neil. The laughable holiday. The holiday from which I need a holiday to recover. The trouble is we never actually just do the holiday thing. You know, where you just go and... Apparently there's this concept of lounging on a beach. Never done it in my life. So whenever we go away, everywhere we go is like full of activities to do. And of course, we're always trying to do extra stuff as well. So yeah, there wasn't much sleep, was there, Mike? About maybe 5 hours a night if you were lucky. But anyway, we're back. So how the devil is everybody?
Yes, we're live, Jonathan.
We are live. Yay. Excellent. It's 9 o'clock. So let me switch over to my desktop and get the slides up. Apologies if there's anything wrong with the slides. I'm bog-eyed with them all. Right, Keynote. Let's get Keynote up. Over that way we go. Right, let's get it a reasonable size and get it over to you. So you should be able to see my blue desktop. And then you should be able to see the first slide. Hello, John. Good to have you with us. Hello, Marcus. I'm missing people here while I'm busy working. Now, hello and welcome. The running order looks a bit sparse, but don't let it fool you. Good evening, Finn. Don't let it fool you, because what we're doing is we're going to spread out the Affinity love around the Freebies and the XL Sparklines. But every single thing that's there is integrated, including XL. You're wondering how I'm going to get XL talking to Affinity Publisher, aren't you? It does. It'll be good. It'll be fine. Now, don't forget, first thing we need to do, make sure you're in HD. There is a cog just under the video, right-hand side, and it should have the red flash on it. If it does not have the red flash on it, everything will be blurry, and you do not want it all to be blurry. So make sure that you've selected HD from under there, and we can get going. Now, if you are watching on catch-up and you're not in the slightest bit interested about the 2 weeks at MacBites headquarters, there is a clickable index below the video. Well, there will be 24 hours after it's gone live. And you can use that to skip to wherever you like. We'll make sure that's fairly detailed because we've got a lot of different topics within the Affinity updates to look at. So if you're not interested, just skip through. But yeah, who wouldn't be interested? Oh, it's been fabulous. First off, after the last live show, which was Valentine's Day, on the Saturday, we went into planning mode. Got loads done. Mike's looking a bit bemused. He can't remember. It's all a blur. But suffice it to say, nothing to see yet. Watch this space. So that was the Saturday. The Sunday, and he's got no idea about this either. Doesn't keep a journal, doesn't Mike? So it's all basically new to him. We went out for lunch, and you know what that means? Mike behind a hot chocolate. I'm not quite sure what that Phoenix logo thing is on there, Mike. It's like angel wings around a coffee cup. But it definitely wasn't coffee. It was hot chocolate, that, with all the trimmings, as you can see. And he was one very happy boy. Then it was on to Monday. And do you remember how my car did remarkably well? It was Mike's turn. But that's not his car. But after the success of my MOT, Mike headed off with his. Suffice it to say, it was all okay in the end. But that was pretty much what it looked like when he came back. So that was the start of our holiday week, that was. Now, the next day was actually the 18th, but it wasn't until the 18th that I realised that on the 17th, I'd passed my 1,250 move goals. So I've had my Apple Watch since September 2016. And apart from the first day it arrived, but in my defence, it didn't arrive till the afternoon, so it wasn't possible. I've done my 12 hours standing, I've done my 30 minutes exercise, and I've done my 300 calories move. So it must have been 1,250 days before the 17th of February. So I'm on for my next one now, which is 1,500. Good evening, Alex. I'm seeing people joining us. So good evening, Alex. On the Wednesday, Wednesday was a bad day. Disaster struck. I'm sure this has happened to us all. iPhone froze, then died, then nothing. So I thought it'll come back in the end. You know, it'll reach a point where it'll realise it needs to work and it'll be fine. No, it got worse. It actually started to get red hot, and I mean red hot. I had to take the case off because I thought it might melt. It was that hot. At which point I thought, iPhone 11, no home button. How do you hard reboot an iPhone 11? Does anybody know? I didn't. I will wholly admit I went and Googled it.
Got me to Google.
It's all in the buttons. The trick is you very quickly press and release the volume up, then very quickly press and release the volume down, and then hold the power button on the right until you get an Apple logo. It took its time, but I'm happy to report I did eventually see the Apple logo. Yes, it must have had coronavirus. It really was not well. The thing was, I wasn't actually doing anything. So it was just sat on a stand in front of me with me looking at it. And when I picked it up, it was getting warmer by the second, and it was non-responsive to anything at all. So now we all know how we can reboot it. I also learnt while I was there, because I don't often do this, do you? Do you do a restart of the phone?
Very rarely.
I very rarely do a restart of the phone, and when I do, I tend to be fiddling around in the system preferences, in the settings. So I do it from there. But apparently, if you hold the power and either of the volume buttons for long enough, it will reboot. Who knew? That's logical, isn't it? Oh, Marcus is visiting. Excellent, excellent. Looking forward to it, Marcus. That's always assuming anybody can go anywhere with the coronavirus. Good evening, Paul. Right, on Thursday, you remember this holiday we were having? It was packing time. Graham will appreciate this. I don't like to pack, I must admit. I don't like packing clothes. I don't like packing my tech. My tech, I'm always thinking, I'm going to have forgotten something. But not only that. This was the Thursday before show day. So what else did I need to do, given that it was a YouTube premiere? Oh, yes, needed to record the show for Friday. Handily, Mike was out of the building for a couple of hours, which was all very well, but by the time I'd got everything pulled together and made up my mind and stuff, and I'd recorded it, I think I did start the edit at this point. Yes, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. Good job, I'm used to it. Hello, Pentacon 6 Expert. Good to have you with us. Which took us to Friday, which meant it was our holiday. We were away for a long weekend, so sort of 3.5 days-ish. When we got there, it wasn't so much a room. It was more of a suite. So I did a panoramic for you. It's a little bit on the blurry side, but you'll get the idea. It was a very, very, very nice room. Look at that. Oh, it was huge. You'll notice we had a TV as well. In fact, it was that big we had two. I turned it on once, had a look at it, declared it to be a TV and then turned it off. So as per usual, me and TVs, no. But that desk proved to be very handy. That's where I actually uploaded the show from. It was a full suite, so that there later, that bit, we turned that into a recording studio for something that's coming later. Then there was the fridge, and that black box is my microphones. Sure what that... that thing underneath the safe, that's right. Yeah, like a safe that size is going to take my stuff. That's just on the right-hand side. And you can just see through to the bedroom there. But that was the bedroom. It was rather nice. There's the other TV. And a huge, huge bathroom. But of more significance to our tech-loving viewers is that desk, because that's where the show was uploaded from. Now, that was an improvement on the last time we went away, wasn't it? Where I was sat in the car park uploading it for a signal. It wasn't a bad speed. It was about 9 down and 8 up, which wasn't bad, but I'm sure I didn't have the whole of the 8. It did take a while, but we got there, and there was a YouTube premiere last week. And it went well. I was following along in the chat whilst I was in the dining room, but I was there in spirit, if not body. And then it was Saturday morning, and Saturday was a hugely busy day. We were organising this event this year, so we had to be at the shooting, but not shooting. Good evening, Pete. We're going through what we've been up to. Lots of mischief. So there was a shooting session to organise, and there were 2 archery sessions to organise. One of the archery sessions on the Saturday was one shot, so I got to have a go. Overall, I came second. Now, you're thinking to yourself, that's not bad. No, but I usually win. I was a bit peeved. Not that I'm competitive, much. But then afterwards, during dinner was rather nice, that was Mike's dessert, I discovered that the guy that beat me is a professional archer. Now, I'm sorry, steward's inquiry required there. So, moral victory for me in the archery, which took us through to Sunday, which we'd made plans for Sunday. I think I did put that in Slack. That was when I got everything out and had it on the desk, but it's not all set up at that point. That's just half of the equipment it took. What we were doing was a live broadcast to Brooklands 196, which you may recall is a radio station that we run for a group that we're involved in. So I'd said to Mike, it would be fantastic, get people in the room and we'll do a live broadcast about what's gone on, because believe you me, there was lots went on. Like Pete says, mischief. Oh, there was lots of mischief. It was really, really funny. We'd had a great time. So I configured all of that until it looked like that, which was the yellow mic was Mike's, the red one was mine. You can see the blue cable disappearing. The blue cable went to the blue microphone, which was in the middle of the room. And in the middle of the room, we actually dragged the patio furniture in, so we had enough, but we had 12 people with us. And we did a live outside broadcast, which, if you want to hear, it's not technical. It was all about our weekend, but it's funny. You can. The first half of it is live from Alveston Hall 2020, and it's at brooklands196.com. Just go there and it's at the bottom of the page. There is another bit to it, which is almost live from Alveston Hall 2020, where we cover what we did the last day. But if you ever have any doubt about the degree of mischief that we do get into, I don't know if you know about Alveston Hall and what type of hotel it is. It's an adults-only hotel. So it's the age range is more saga age, and if that means nothing to you, we're talking retired. So Mike and I were one of the youngest there. I think there was 2 younger than us. But they provide everything. Everything is on site. All the food is there, all the entertainment is there, the full bit. So this is the Sunday night after we've done our live OB, and there was more than one bit of entertainment, but the main entertainment was a Queen tribute. Well, you know how we love that. And Mike had decided it was time to get the Freddy outfit out, which meant there was him, and he was actually alone, weren't you, at one point on the dance floor? But then Caroline dashed up, and then Nina dashed up, and before 2 minutes had gone along, that was what the dance floor looked like. That's all our gang. In fact, it's not quite all our gang, is it? There was more than our gang. We had 35 in total, and I think I'm not even sure, some of those are our gang. The ones on the left do not look like our gang. But the singer, poor girl, you can see her just behind, although she's quite blown out, just freaked out at how many people were coming up. But it was a fantastic, fantastic night. No, I wasn't shot this year, Kim. I wasn't. We didn't even get to the shooting until Monday. They actually put an extra session on for us because there were so many of us, they couldn't actually squeeze all of us onto the shooting session, so we had to draw lots for it. But they then decided they would put one on Monday, And there is Mike taking aim. There's even a spare rifle there. You can see how far back I'm standing and how low down I am. So no, I did not get shot this year. I did very, very well on the target thing, but then we changed. I got 28 out of 30 and 29 out of 30, and then we went to darts. Don't know much about darts. It didn't end well. But it was soon Tuesday and we were back home. At which point my Amazon toy next to me, my Alexa, flashed up a warning, which I went to the government UK site to capture for you. Yes, we'd not been back 2 minutes and were inundated with water. Now, in relation to where we are on that map, we are, I'm trying to get a little dot on it, we are somewhere down there. And that is the Manchester United training ground. So we're very close, as the crow flies anyway. If you actually wanted to get to it, you wouldn't be that close. No, if you actually wanted to get to the United training ground, you'd have to go all the way up here and down there and down these roads and that way. But as the crow flies, it's very, very close. Luckily, we were okay. So no harm done, but not a great way to be welcome back home, was it? But Wednesday was, because Wednesday was 1.8 day. Ooh, big updates. And I have spent every waking minute since then working through them. On Thursday, however, not done with the 1.8, the 1.8.1 updates came out. If you are going to follow along tonight and you do not have the 1.8.1 updates, go do it now. Go do it now. And I think whoever mentioned those icons changing, they look different to me as well. They look bigger in the YouTube chat. Anyway, that takes us on to today and where we are right now. So let's get on with it. The Affinity Apps 1.8 updates. Yay! So it came out very, very early, I think. I think it was early in the morning on, early to me anyway, on Wednesday. And as I say, they pushed this update on the Thursday, which is the 1.8.1. Now, if you're going to update, you need to update all of them as it says there, because you need that for Studio Link to work. If you're on Windows or you're using the iOS versions, then that's not affected. It's literally just the Mac ones. So they were pushed to the App Store, but if you had direct download, then you could just either update from inside the application or download a new version. I always download the new version and then put it over the top. And the reason is so I've got the installer from the previous version. Having said that, Mike's going to put some links in where you can download stuff, and you'll see that they always leave you about 3 or 4 previous versions if you've purchased direct, so you can actually roll back. One of the perks of buying direct from them. The disadvantage of buying direct from them is you need the activation key, and then you've got to fiddle around with that. Right, let's get out and go and have a look. Oh, we're in that mood, are we? It's not playing, but I'm having terrible trouble with iOS in general. I'm presuming it's because I'm still on Mojave and they want me to update and I don't want to, which means at the moment, possibly 50-50 as to who's winning. But let's go in and have a look at one of the things that is not in the slightest bit exciting. So I thought I'd start with this one. It is exciting to me. It's probably not exciting to you. So we're going to skip what is different here so I can just show you this one thing, which is, I've got some text in Sublime Text as well. Right, when you used to navigate text in Affinity Publisher, it wasn't quite as you would navigate normally. And what they've done is they've changed that. So you can actually navigate the text in a better way. Now, this isn't the best text to use, but just to show you that you can actually navigate by word. And it's just more akin to how you would do it in every other application, basically. So that used to drive me mad because I use shortcuts all the time and it was doing different things in Affinity Publisher to every other application. I'm just reading about poor Pete and his almost dead laptop. Kids, you see. See, at least with a dog, she's sleeping peacefully. No, she's never been shown any interest in a laptop, I can honestly say. So that was really just a very tiny tweak, but it's one of those things that shows attention to detail. So if you've been driven mad with the fact that your normal shortcuts don't work, go if they are improved for you. Now, the other thing, let me close that one down. No, I don't want to save it, was the thing that we've just actually had a look at. which is when you are in any application and you do your Command N or Control N to get to the new dialog, it's totally changed. Now, not totally changed to the point of it doesn't work anymore. It does, and it works better. But it could be quite intimidating when you're looking at it thinking, whoa, that does not look like it did before. Right, what you're actually looking at here is exactly what you had previously. It's just in a much bigger dialog, and it's giving you more detail. So across the top, right, well, first off, let's start down the side here. You have presets and you have templates. Now, templates are completely new. They are what we're going to look at next. Presets have always been there, but you could be forgiven for not making any of your own because it wasn't really, it was quite hidden. It was hidden in submenus as to how you actually saved them. The part where you went in, you could configure it. So let's say I'm here and I want to do something in print. Then we've got all of these options over here under the disclosure triangles, groupings of settings that you can change. And then you can make a completely custom layout. So for instance, I had to go in and change the size in here when I wanted to do a business card. So you could have done all of that before, but then it wasn't obvious that you could save it as a preset. It's a little bit more obvious now because you do have in here your own custom presets in the groups at the top. So presets on the left hand side, and then across the top you have the groupings of presets in your particular installation of Affinity Publisher. So in the custom, which is my presets, you see I do actually have 2 custom presets. I didn't create them in this version. It transported them across from the previous version and made them look pretty with icons. Before they were just a list. Then of course you have exactly what you had before. You've got your print collection, and there's a lot of them. These are the standard sizes of paper. They've also added in, I mean, there's a business card there, which that's 85 by 55. What was mine? 85 by 55. I must have ignored that one. But at the bottom there, you've also got 12-inch vinyl covers and 7-inch vinyl covers and CD booklets and stuff like that. So you can have it as more than just a single page, but it's a preset rather than a template. Who can tell me the difference between a preset and a template? Brownie point if you can. Well, I go on and talk about the other presets you've got. So they are for print, but you also have print ready, which is, I tend to use that when I'm sending it out to print. You have photo, which is sizes of photograph, and it gives you the ratios as well. So if you're working on photographs, you've got that. You have web sizes, which I must admit I don't tend to use that much in Affinity Publisher. Where I would use this particular layout, which is a 1280 by 720 at 16:9, is if I was creating something where I wanted to make it in Affinity Publisher, or Affinity Designer or Affinity Photo, and I then wanted to take it out to my presentation because my presentation is 1280 by 720. So I use that one a lot, but not often in Affinity Publisher, and that's where we are now. But everything that we look at in this dialog box is exactly the same in Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo. Then you've got your devices, which is your iPad minis and your iPad 2s and all of the other devices. Again, I don't use those much, certainly not in here. I would use those in Designer. And you've got architectural as well. So those are all the options that you've got. Right, Neil's had a stab. Presets perform a set of actions, whereas a template is a set of settings. And Pete's saying Mike. Mike can tell me. Right, a preset. Okay, missed that one. My apps are still at 8.1, not 8.1. 1.8.1. No sign of an update on the App Store or the Serif site. Oh, okay. Where did you buy them from? Did you buy them from the App Store? If you bought them from the App Store, then the update should be there. Let's go into the App Store and see what it says is the latest version. I am pretty sure, because I did that myself. In fact, I did the updates. I've got updates in here. So when I go on to more, at the bottom it says 1.8.1. As does the photo one. That should be, where is it? There we go. Version 1.8.1. So it should be there. Should be there. If not, what you could do is back up all your settings, uninstall it. In fact, what you could do is just zip up the one you've got and move it out of the way. And then trash the one that's not zipped up. And then go to the store and re-download it. By just moving the app, you shouldn't lose any settings. And you've already got a zipped up copy if there's a problem. For me, they showed up as updates in the store. But you'll notice that in my updates, Affinity Publisher isn't there. It isn't there because I bought that one direct. Now, Mike has got some links for the direct thing, but I will endeavour to, if my browser's playing ball, and let's get to Affinity. Let's have a look. Right, I don't think I did it from there. I think I did it directly. Let me get the link that I've put in my own notes here, which is in here. Yeah, I'm just trying to find the one. I got the one direct from them. So I've got, there are 3 links that should take you to the right place. So this is the links, one of the links Mike's putting in. This one happens to be to Affinity Publisher. The link is store.serif.com/en-gb/update/macOS/publisher/1/. You'd obviously have to change macOS to Windows if it's a Windows one you're looking for. But this is the page I was talking about where you can always download the latest version and a handful of previous versions that they've got underneath there. I always choose to download from this URL. Now, you can't download from this URL and use it other than in trial mode if you bought from the App Store. Now, my Windows versions were bought direct from Affinity, and my publisher license was bought direct from Affinity. Having said that, I've also got a publisher license from the App Store, belt and braces. I do tend to double buy apps that are critical to my workflow, and that one is critical to my workflow. I also got a huge discount for being a beta tester, so not a problem. But yes, you should be able to get it from there. So those links are coming into you now. Okay, so I was up to Alex, wasn't I, with size and settings, templates, content that can be reproduced. That's the key difference. So Tracy's right there as well. Presets are just a starting point. It's like dimensions, settings. Do you want it, what quality you want it, what DPI you want it, but no content. No content. Now, there's lots of ways we've tried in the past because it didn't have template support to try and force a preset to do it, but it doesn't. Okay, so a preset is just a starting point. A template is the holy grail. A template has content. So if you find that you are doing repeated jobs, now, one of the jobs I do, and it was like, oh, thank you, a template. If you've got multiple artboards, because if you look in your settings that you have over here, you have layout and you have pages, and you can say facing pages, and you can set your colours and your margins and your bleed. But when I'm in Designer, I want multiple artboards, and it's not so hot at that. And I want content on the artboards and other things too. So a template is more powerful than a starting point, than a preset, but sometimes you won't have any content that is relevant. You will be totally starting from scratch, and that's when you'll use a preset. So I said to you, most of the ones I use, my main used one is for web, and it's 1280 by 720, except in Affinity Publisher, where it's going to be either print or print ready, and probably A5. But we'll go for A6 today, A4. Not this right yet. Right, now you can tweak this before you click create. And that is the options that you have in the layouts. So the layout at the moment is A4, 210mm by 297mm at 300 dpi. I do change that to 400, must admit. I leave it in millimetres because it's exact. A new thing is the orientation. You used to just have a checkbox as whether it was portrait or not, which meant if you wanted it landscape, you took the check out of the box, which is grand, but doesn't actually say that. So what they've done now is you can actually change that in here. Then you've got your image placement policy. Your image placement policy is usually defaults to linked, especially if it's print ready. But you can see underneath it, you can have it embedded. And what you're choosing here is which way you would prefer to work. Now, I always choose embedded, and I realise that will give me a much bigger file to manage. The Affinity Publisher file will have the embeds contained within it. So every image that I put in, every PDF that I put in, it will be inside that publisher file, which makes it bigger. That's why the default is linked. It gives you a much leaner Affinity Publisher file, and all of your external images are external to the file. So why do I prefer embedded? Well, I find I'm usually on some kind of ludicrous deadline, and I'm downloading stock images and I'm getting images in via email. I've got images all over the place, and I don't really want to waste time taking them from where they are and then putting them into one place and then putting them in here. I just want to drag them in, right? Just get everything in there. So if I make them embedded and then I want to send them to print, or I want to send them somewhere else, one thing that's an advantage to the embedded is I can pick up that file and give it to Mike or give it to a client, and they'll see it as is. But if I need that file to be trimmed down a bit, and when this would be really relevant is when you're using the same images, the same embedded content in multiple files, then it makes sense to have them outside of the file. Well, it doesn't really matter what you pick at this point. I always pick embedded, and I would suggest that's a good way to start, because once you've got all the graphics in there, you can go to the manager. There is a resource manager, and you can select the lot and say, link them. And it will kick the graphics out into a single folder, and you won't have to have done any management. So that's why I always start with embedded. Then you've got the number of pages that you're starting with and whether you have a default master page or not, which is probably a good idea. You can always add extra pages later, but if you know that you're going to be making an 8-page brochure, then you can do that right at this point. So let's put that in and make it 8 pages. Then you've got whether your pages are facing pages, etc. All of these are very similar to what you had before. They are just put in a different place. Oh, now we use that Fogra thing, don't we? Fogra 29, isn't it uncoated or coated?
One nearest the top.
Oh, 27 or 39?
No, 29.
20. Ah, but I've got two. I've got coated and uncoated.
At the top of the list.
Right, the one that I'm on now. So I've got 27 and 39 at the...
30 seconds behind.
Oh, this is going to be good. I'll just make it that one then, which is the top one. You can choose if you want a transparent background, and of course you can set up your margins. Usually I want my margins a lot smaller than that. If I want my margins to be all the same, or I want 3 of them to be the same, then click the link icon and go in and make it, probably I'm much more likely to want 10, but I probably want 15 at the bottom, so I then unlink them and then put the 15 in. The bleed is the area into which you spread your content. It's not intended to print, but if half a millimetre does, then you don't see white. So you bleed your content off into the bleed, and the standard for me is 3 millimetres. It seems to be a fairly standard, as it were. So all we've done with that is make a couple of customisations here. That is all we have done with it. And we'll now say create, go to document. So there is no content in it, but everything that we set up is there. So the master, the default master is there. We have a cover page. We then have spreads. We have 3 spreads with 2 pages in each and a back cover with page 8. So that's a preset. Now, if we go into something else, I don't think I've got any in there. Let's have a look at Affinity Designer. Then I need to talk things as well, which I've totally forgotten to mention, which should have been mentioned first, but never mind. All adds to the fun, doesn't it? If you do exactly the same thing in here, as I said, but in fact it's opening wherever it pleases, you can see again, they look identical, don't they? You've got print ready, you've got photo, you've got web, there's my default web one, you've got your devices, and you've got your architectural. And you have presets, and I don't have any presets in Designer. I do have presets in Publisher, but not in Designer. But we'll come back, hold that thought, because what I do have in Designer, shiny toys. I have shiny toys in Designer in the templates. So it'll be Designer probably that I look at the templates with. Right, so those were your presets. They're very simple to work with. Let's go into photo. And I think I'll use photo as the example because everything is way too crowded in Publisher. Right, in photo, this is also 1.8.1. Right, away we go. Okay, so in here, same process, file new. And you get exactly the same dialog box. Now, before, these dialog boxes were not the same. So there were changes, differences between them in the applications, and now they're a lot more standard. You'll see, let's go into print ready. You'll see here there's fewer options. Although we're in print ready, we've only got 3. So we don't have things like bleed on there. So it's relevant, what you see is relevant to the application that you're in, but they've made them absolutely as standard as conceivable. And you can also have templates in there as well if you want, which I haven't, but you could. So we're going to look at templates shortly. But while I've got Affinity Photo open, one of the huge differences is actually the interface. I must admit, I'm a little bit lukewarm on one aspect of it, but what they've done is they've moved these 5 buttons in the top. So these bits here, they used to be lower down and they've moved them up. Now, by moving them up, they've saved space. But in moving them up, they've lost the area which was above that, where it used to say Affinity Photo, Affinity Publisher, Affinity Designer. So they've whammed that in the middle, which is fine if it is in the middle, but if you've customised your toolbar a bit, it doesn't look good. The other problem for me is, particularly in Designer, I'd customise the toolbar. So if we leave Photo and we go back and look at Designer, actually, that's not too bad. It's not far off, is it, at the moment? It's not quite in the middle, though, because I've got so much else up here. The good news is, if you right-click on here and customise, you do not need to have that showing. The default set is at the bottom, and I haven't got the default set because I've changed it. But my first thought was, can I lose that? And the good news was, yes, I could. Now, I'll put it back just so you're not disoriented. Which was a good idea, wasn't it? Apart from the fact you can't put that one back on its own by the look of it. There's a gross oversight, so it doesn't look like I will be putting it back then, because I'm not dragging all that lot up there. Unless you can scroll. Ah, there we go. There we go. So they're actually calling that a status. That's because I've got turned on. Windows users will be laughing their little cotton socks off. I've got turned on only show scroll bars when relevant. Well, obviously it's relevant, but it's still not showing them. But when I start to scroll, I see them. If you're wondering how to disable that, that's in your Mac system preferences. It's ridiculous. I think Mike did disable it, didn't you? He didn't like the fact he didn't know when he had scroll bars and when he didn't. But just showing you that you can actually do that. I think that looks like Scrivener. I think it looks like the Scrivener search thing that they put in the middle. And it's all very well if you've got the room for it. And if I was running at full resolution, then I would have much more room for it. But I still think it could be much better used. Now, however, if you keep your eye on that box, when you go to File New, and you choose, we'll choose my favourite web one, you'll see it does actually give you information and feedback. So it's not a total waste of space. It's showing you at the moment that it's unsaved, but if it was saved, it would show you the title of the document. So if we do save that, and we'll just copy today's date, that'd be better, wouldn't it? There we go, today's date, and stick it in the folder. Then you see the name of the file, and you see the zoom level. The only problem for me is that my file names tend to be a little bit longer than that can display properly anyway. My first concern was, need to lose that. But if I lose it, how will I know what zoom level I'm at? And what if I've got more than one document open? So let's go and make another document. And you do still get this panel. It's where the document is, and you've got 2 of them, and they do have the document name in it. So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, do I actually care what the zoom level is? Because if I don't, then I can effectively lose this and gain more space on the toolbar, which is what I intend to do. I'm not living with that thing flying around. The other problem for me was it wasn't in the middle, and then it just felt odd. Does anybody else feel like this, or is it just me? that if that's going to be there, it's going to have to be bang in the middle, and it wasn't. But as I say, that could just be me. All right, Pete says, loves how Affinity have responded to the critique quickly and made a great app even more awesome. Indeed, this is a big update. I actually felt once I'd worked through it that if they'd charged for it and it was 2.0, I would have thought that was perfectly reasonable. They have added that much to it. People are still saying that there is further to go, which obviously there is, but it's a very nice update. You think of something like templates as being, it's okay. You know, it was not as big as the InDesign thing for a lot of people, but actually that for me is probably bigger. So it just depends on what features you use, I guess. All right, I'm going to close that one down. I'm going to go back into Affinity Publisher. So we've done the presets. The presets are easier to use, I would say, than they were before. There's a much better consistency between them. But, of course, it's templates where it's at, isn't it? So what we have here is a file that's open, not saved, not much in it yet, not much use. But when you think of all the things that go in a file, they are all of the things that could go in a template. So if I open up, what's probably easiest here? Have I got a recent thing? No, probably not, just the short answer. Right, if you imagine that you're doing your magazine, so you want a nice front cover on it, and I'll go right through the bleed on that. And you want to put on there a gradient. So let's go get a gradient. And we'll have the gradient go right across it. Come on, let's put some colour in the gradient. You just think of how many different things you would have to do to get that to the point that it is even a framework. Oh, aren't you moving? Come on, over there. Up we go. Oh, yes, nice and lurid. Loving that. Right, do I use... Oh, there's a question for you, Mike. Do you use Affinity on Windows?
I'll answer it in the chat.
Can I tell them the funny story about you and your iPad?
Yeah.
Oh, let me. He was just about to start, and we have our notes in Notion, as you know, and I've bemoaned Notion and its mobile apps quite a few times. So Mike says, this really isn't good, is it? As he's flicking up and down. I said, why not? He said, well, it's all squashed up on the left. There's no proper layout with it. And he's got his iPad in his hand as he's trying to prop that up on the desk. So I turned around and I looked at him and I said, well, why don't you just use your Surface? Problem solved. It's got the kick leg at the back, so you forget the stand. It's got the pen, and it's got the proper... It's a desktop machine, so it has full Notion. Guess what's on his desk right now?
For a life without an iPad.
He's preparing for a life without an iPad. To be honest, that Surface works on the desk much better. It doesn't need a stand. It's a little bit smaller. It's just easier to use. So he's got his Surface on his desk. So yes, he's a Windows user. Just doesn't want to admit it. Okay, so what I'm saying about this is all of the things that you would need to do. So if I wanted that to be MacBites, I would actually probably cheat. These are the things we did last week. All right. I would probably put something like that up there, and I'd then have to put it in. So MacBites. Then I'd have to make it the right size, make it the right colour, etc. So the whole point of templates is to give you content as well as layout. That's the whole point. That's totally the wrong font as well. It's I think it's Myriad Pro. That's better. There we go.
I wonder what version I've got installed on there.
Oh, I could tell them the funny story about your versions as well. I came to update Mike's computer. There was a reason, but don't worry about it. And I said to him, have you updated? He said, are you joking? You know Mike never updates. And I came to it and I thought, what on earth? He had the old icon. And when I looked, he had version 1.6. That's how often he opens these things. I do all the design. He just sits and watches. Right, and I would probably be looking to make some changes colour-wise to that as well. But you could do a whole raft of things in here and then save it as a template. So one thing I'd be looking to do is probably put more master pages in. What else would you put in? So I've said content, but what content would you include? And I don't mean for you to say, oh, you know, a picture of my goldfish. Obviously, generalise it. Photos. Any imagery that you need in there, you could put in. But what else could you put in a template? Now, I've given you a clue and said master pages. So if I were to create in here another master page, right, so we have a master B, and I can put on there, so we know it is B, right, that's B, or it would be if it wasn't white. There we go, a nice pink B. However many master pages you have in there, you can put them, they will be stored in your template. Oh, yes, Johnny, you're totally right. Table of contents. So you could have a table of contents there ready, which would repopulate when you add your actual content. That's another thing you could do. What about things you can't see? What about things that aren't actually part of the document? So if we apply that B master to there, we should get B on it. Excellent. So multiple masters, actual content, images, table of contents. What else? I mean, you could break the graphic part down into, you could put text frames in, you could put content in. So if there's like copyright notices, page numbers, put all of that in there. What you'll probably find at the beginning of creating these templates is that you'll create one and then think, I've forgotten X, and you'll have to go back and then edit it. But you can do that. I will show you that when I actually create one. But I'm thinking, particularly in Affinity Publisher, because I'm also going to show you this in Affinity Designer where it floats my boat. Particularly in Affinity Publisher, what about text? Not the actual text, but the look of the text. Text styles. In fact, all kinds of styles. Any style, anything that you can put in a document can be part of a template. So take it as far as you possibly can. So if we go down here and I get myself, no, not one of those, not one of those. I will have a text box. Because if you remember, I had some Lorem Ipsum text, didn't I, that was kicking around in Sublime. I'll just take a couple of paragraphs of it, which means taking out the carriage returns. Right, let's take 3 paragraphs of Lorem Ipsum and stick it in there. All right. Just some random text. Now, it doesn't look brilliant, does it? Not really styled much at all. Now, just a heads up, I am going to cover next week, because I've been asked a million times, I am going to cover text styles in Affinity Publisher. I am also going to cover a workflow to get your Scrivener styles out of Scrivener into Affinity Publisher, both in terms of the name of them and the look of them. So I'm doing that next week. All I'm doing here is showing you. I'm going to format this text differently. So let's have that as something like Times New Roman. And we'll make it italic. And we'll make it a bit bigger than that so we can actually see it. Now we have some styled text. You might not actually want the text in there, but you wouldn't want to bring the text in when you base a document on this and have to reformat it. So what you would need to do is to create a text style. And I am looking around frantically for where the text styles dialog is. It's on another screen because it's usually quite big, isn't it? And at the moment that has no style on it. Now, don't get married to the way that I'm going to do this at the moment, which is just to select some of this and say make a new style. It will work. So this might be my preferred body style. Preferred body style, there you go. The reason I'm saying don't fall in love with this way of doing it is there is a more complicated way that's much better. It's just a little bit more complicated, but I've created a style. There is my preferred body style. So I'll just select the entire lot, make sure that that is preferred body style, and I'm good to go. That style will now be saved inside the template. So the key with this is you've got 2 ways of doing it actually for the quickest. One is to take an existing publication and rip out the actual custom content, leaving you with the repeating elements and the things that you will use to make another one. The other way to do it is to build it up from scratch and only take it as far as before you put custom information in. One way's faster than the other. One way's probably better than the other. If you started from scratch, it would be completely clean and tidy, and you wouldn't have to worry about things being left over from previous jobs. But that's how you make a style. Very quick way of doing it. So basically anything and everything that you can do. and then save it as a template. Now, to save it as a template, you go to File and you export as template. Now, you should at this point be thinking, and I wonder if anybody is, should I save it as a document first? Well, that's going to depend. You don't need to, no. Once you've exported it as a template, you can open that template and edit it. So from that perspective, you don't need to worry. But in terms of having a backup copy, it's going to depend on where that template is, isn't it? So I've not saved this. I'm exporting it as a template. And it will go. I'm seeing if it's going to jiggle around with itself. It usually does. Here you go. So it defaults to my Affinity Publisher folder. And you will see at the top of my Affinity Publisher folder, 10 past midnight, there I was playing around. I created a templates folder. Now, that is with my documents. So it's not only on this machine. If you're going to put it somewhere on one computer, then do think about making a backup somewhere else. What I've decided to do at the moment is to treat them as special documents and just put them in a templates folder. So I'm going to open the templates folder, and you can see in here, this is where I have my brochures, A5, A4. Isn't an A5 one there yet though. And there's my business cards from Printed Easy. So these are my templates. I'm about to save this one. Actually, it's now saying it's going to save it as that, which I don't want. Right, so this one is going to be the MacBites magazine. So that's what the template is going to be called. You may be better off calling it something totally different. Let's say yours was a 2-page flyer at 400 dpi A5. Call it that. Because it's a generic document that could be used for lots of different brands. Because this one's got MacBites in it, it would make no sense to call it a generic 8-page A4 magazine. It's a MacBites magazine. So think about that as well. No, I've just seen that comment. Do not get me going about iOS-only fundamentalists. Especially not after a weekend away, when I was lusting after a Surface. It was terrible. Right. Good night, Pete. So I'm going to save that. Actually, I'm not. I'm not going to save that in the templates folder. Anybody care to work out why not? You probably won't know yet, but I'm going to make a folder in here, and I'll call this MacBites, all of my MacBites stuff. And there is a reason for this, which is the very next thing I'll show you. So I've made a folder called MacBites, and I've put the MacBites magazine in it. At this point, I'm still working on a document as far as Affinity Publisher is concerned, and you'll see at the top it's still called Untitled. So if you make any subsequent changes to this, and you think, so let's say the change is that you go in and you put some text in that says After Hours 65, should that be saved as a template or should that be saved as a document? And that depends on whether you want that to be kind of placeholder text or whether it's real content, real content. In which case, if this is the magazine for After Hours 65, then you need to save it as a file. So I will now save this as a file. And it's going to it's going to default back to there, and I'll put MacBites magazine. Right, so we've saved it and we've got a template. Okay. So I'm going to close that file completely. That was episode 65. But what I want to do is get prepared, ready for next week. So I want to go to File, and I want to go to New. And instead of looking at presets, I'm going to look at templates. I have my A5 brochures, of which I don't have any, and I have my A4 embedded single pages RGB, which it happens to be a Brooklands one. What I don't have up here is a folder to put MacBites in. So how the templates work in the first degree on the left here is that you can create a range of folders. They do not all have to be from the same root folder. but mine are. So you can see there, it's Google Drive, My Drive, Application Support, where are we? Affinity Publisher, and then Templates. But that yours could be anywhere. I'm going to keep mine all in one place because I don't want to risk losing one. What you may need to do, though, is have your own folders full of templates and maybe shared or collaborative templates as well. And it doesn't matter which they are, you just do it by adding a folder. You toddle off and find the folder, which is templates, and then you find, and you do it twice because it's got a mind of its own, you find the one and you choose that. Now you'll see inside it, there is already the MacBites magazine template, an AF template file. So you can create your templates, you can give them to somebody else, and they can you could make it that they never actually appear as templates for you. The part we're doing now is making them templates available to your installation of the Affinity apps. So I'm going to choose that, which adds in the MacBites folder, which then shows me what's inside it, which is the MacBites magazine. So we've got 4 parts of this. The first panel on the left-hand side is just a toggle between presets and templates. The next one has the list of folders inside which you will store your templates. At the bottom, you can add extra folders. You can remove folders. So if we look at that A5 one that didn't have any, I can remove it. Are you sure you want to remove the template folder? It says it is not an undoable operation. I'll say yes, delete it. But if I go back and choose to add, I'll let it strut its stuff and calm itself down first. It always does it twice. Right, and go back in here. It hasn't actually deleted it from the file system. The folder is still there. It doesn't have any templates in it. That doesn't matter. It didn't delete anything other than the pointer from inside Affinity Publisher. And your third option is to show it in the Finder, at which point it will open up a little Finder window and it will show you where that is. So you can see from the path at the bottom, it's My Drive on Google Drive, Application Support, Affinity Publisher, Templates, Brochures, A5. Okay, now one thing to think about. Oh, she's not happy now. Oh, you can't reorder them. And they're not in alphabetical order, are they? And there's no right click. Now I've got a complaint. So if you do want them in a particular order, you're going to have to add them in that order. I think I added the A5 first because I intended to do it, but clicking and dragging, not doing a thing. But those are the options you've got available at the bottom. Then when you have clicked on one, the middle panel gives you the preview. If you had multiple ones, you would see them listed. And then you've got a bigger preview on the right hand side, and then all you need to do to use it is to hit create, and it comes through as untitled, and you can do with it as you will. If we go down to here, the actual text is still there, but if I'd have formatted that, let's make sure the style's still there. Is the style still there? There we go. Preferred body style. Yes, it is. So there's a huge long list of what is included in a template, and to make it easier for you, I would just say everything. It's just a document saved as a template from where you can create a new one based on how it was at the point you saved it and then carry it forward. Now, you may need to do things though, may you not. So let's close that, don't need to save it. Let's go back to new. Now in here, let's say with this magazine, I've realised I've used it 5 times. And my problem now is I've realised I shouldn't really put that text in it because every time I go to it, I need to take that text out. Right, if I right click on it, there is an option to open template for edit. So I'll click on that. Now this is the point to be careful. Any changes you make in here, you're writing them back to the template. So in here, I was saying I've got all of this text and I don't really want all of that text because all I'm doing is deleting it. So I'll delete the text. That's a much better start for me. But that's on page 4, isn't it? So I will make sure here that I've also got some kind of title because I don't really want to just start like that. I would probably at the top of my document have some kind of title. So let's say I draw that out there and I just put in page title. Is that the best place for my page title? Question to you, who's awake. Is that the best place for that? If not, where would you put it? Where would you put it and why? Not the best style either. Ooh, let's make it italic. Looks less offensive, doesn't it? And the colour's not great either. It's a MacBites colour. It needs to be an orangey colour. A nice, vibrant orangey colour. Is that the best place for my page title? If not, why not? Oh, no one's answering. No one's answering. Well, if it's the only page that I have that kind of page title, that would be absolutely fine. Just put it there. But if this is a magazine, which we've said it is, and every page or a lot of pages are going to have the page title in the same place, then it might be an idea to make a master for that. So let's make a few changes here and make a master C. And we will put that page title on there. I think it needs to move that way a smidgen. That looks better. And then over here, let's go back to that. We can delete that. Could be on the side. Yes, I probably would put that on the side, to be honest. What I'm saying is not particularly its position on the page. I mean its position technically within the file. Is it on the page or is it in a master? So in a master is a much better place to put it. Right, in a master is a much better place to put that. Right, but we're editing the template, remember. Up here, we are editing the template. So we'll hit Save, Command and S, and then close it down. Then go back to File and New. There's our magazine. Hit Create. And we should see that page 4 has got a title coming through from the master. It also has a text block down here. And when I click into it and start typing some text on the night of the demo, it comes in with the right style. If we need to check that, there's the styles panel and it has preferred text, preferred body style as the style. So, templates, fabulous. In Affinity Publisher, you could take that to the nth degree, and I will revisit that once I'm looking at InDesign files. However, they work in exactly the same way in Photo and exactly the same way in Designer. But I don't need to save that. There are a couple of slight differences based on the content that you would normally put in a Designer file as opposed to any other kind of file. So if I go to File New here and I go to my templates, you'll see I've already started. I have a Brooklands folder and I have a MacBites folder. And one of the things that has driven me mad on a regular basis is the fact that without a template, if I open up my poster set of MacBites, that's my show art. That is my template. And if I turn on my notes, you can see which size is which. And I know from that, the ones on the right-hand side are for printing. This one is the 16:9, which is the default. The 1:1 is used on Instagram. The 795 by 500 is the post image thumbnail in WordPress. And this is our recording notes. So I know exactly what they are. The problem for me up to now has been that I have had to have this as a file and open it and do a save as, and remember to do a save as. Now, the reason that this is so good being a template is obviously I can go to File New and I can make a file. This was the old way of doing it. I'd go to a preset and I'd choose Web and I'd choose 720 and I'd get that. And then how I created the file that you're looking at is I had to insert an artboard. And then I inserted more artboards of all different sizes. Safe trip home, Paul. Right, so there's, let's say we'll make a 1:1. There you go. And we'll make the magazine cover. And all of these are separate artboards. And that's what a preset can't help you with. This is where a template comes into its own. So, that's what I had. There were 8 on there. All I'd done with that is literally start off with a diagram like that and save it as a template. But what else apart from, so I'll show you what I've got in here. There are 8 artboards They look like they're all called the same, and indeed they are. So I haven't actually yet created, let's do it right now, haven't created the show art for MacBites 125. Jonathan's just dropped something. Right, the next episode of MacBites, and this is all I do. Put the first one in, double click, paste, double click, paste. Now, what you should be thinking about is, does it matter if these artboards are all called the same? Is there any ramification in the artboards being called the same? I mean, nothing's screaming at the moment. When will something start to scream if the artboard is called the same? And why I'm drawing your attention to this is, there's a whole aspect in Designer that you don't really need to think about in Publisher. In Publisher, you publish your file. You make a PDF or you send it out in other ways. What do you do in Designer? Who's going to tell me what they do in Designer? Do you do a save, an export? What do you do? Alex is spot on. Exporting. If I wanted to send out one of these, then I could do a save as, and I get this little dialog box, and I could choose to save my artboard, my single artboard, which is the one with the blue handles at the top, as a PNG, a JPEG, a GIF, a TIFF, Photoshop file, Acrobat file, loads of other file formats, but only one artboard at a time. That is not going to be good enough for me. Trust me, be there forever. Because this artboard, the 16 by 9, needs to be exported in about 9 different sizes for all the different jobs. So one of the things that you can put in a template is in your export persona. You'll see they're all called the same in here as well. But when I go inside them, my exports all have different names. So at the end, I've put the size that they are at the end. And all of this export persona information, of which there is acres of it, look at it all, is saved in your template. Oh, it's like Christmas comes soon. It's fabulous. Now, all of that was in my file, but I had to remember not to overwrite it. Okay, so all of that is stored in there as well. And I've actually taken that a little bit further in terms of... how did I do that? I'm wondering where I put that now. But I actually made this so when it exports, it actually creates an entire folder structure with its little self as well. I think I put a path in. Did I put a path in every one of them? Clearly not in that one, I didn't. But I did somewhere. It's all in there with a path. And it all exports beautifully. It's wonderful. All of that's going to be saved in your template. Right. What else would be saved in your template? Which would be very important. Now, you look at these artboards and they're a grey. They're a middling grey. All right. But something should be screaming at you in the top right-hand corner on my colour palette here. I've got my swatches. I could change that. But that colour is saying what? Obviously, I can change it in there. What's on that colour that you need to be thinking about? Something that would get saved with your template. We did talk about this. We've talked about this a few times and you all loved it. Who's been using it and can remember what on earth it is? It's right there in front of you. It says Edit Global Colour. It's a global colour. But even better than that, if you go to your swatches, I have a document palette. And in there is my global grey, which is called background. So that document template will also get saved. The document palette, rather, will also get saved in your template. So it's very easy with the Affinity apps to look at Affinity Publisher and think, oh, that one, there's lots of things to save in there, but not so much in Photo or Designer. But that's not right. There's a lot of other things to put in there too. So all I did with that was save it as a template. I went to File, I went to Export as Template, and then I saved it to my templates folder. Not the same one. So if we look at the path, Application Support Affinity Designer Templates MacBites. Now, you could just as easily keep all the MacBites ones together irrespective of application. It's completely up to you. But that's all I did with it. Now, this is the bonus bit. Because what I thought was, so let's come out of there. I don't want to save that. And I definitely don't want to save that. I don't want to start again, trust me. Right, so File New. I started looking at this, which is a poster set for our other Brooklyn stuff. Not quite so many posters on it, but I looked at it and I thought, well, one of the problems I've got is I tend to name them quite long. So it starts with poster set and then I can't see the end of it. The other thing was I looked at it and I thought, that's not exactly inspiring, is it? That poster, you know, that thumbnail preview. I wonder, I thought. I wonder. If you look at the MacBites one, well, you've seen me use this one, which is MacBite Show Art. But I've also got this one, which says poster set. So if we click on that, that also is Show Art. That's Show Art 2. I was playing around. I thought, I wonder. And what I was wondering was, could I make the thumbnail look amazing rather than look scrappy? And the answer to that was yes. And this is how you do it. If I double click on that, I'll get an instance of that file. So double click, new file based on that. And you'll see I've got show artboards all over the place and this huge graphic. It's on an artboard called template. And because it's there sitting above all of the other artboards, when it makes the template, it uses that as the preview. And all I need to do is just turn it off. In fact, I can even get better than that, because once I've made a file, which I have now, I am never, ever going to need that. So actually, instead of turning it off, I could just delete it. And now I can get going. But what it enables me to do is to basically put, we can actually create it again for you. All I did was put an artboard, bang on the top of all the others, and then put a graphic on it. So let's just put a colour on it. Not the grey. That would be boring. Let's have that rich purple. And let's put in some text that says my template. Ooh, that's bad, isn't it? Yellow on purple. But let's put it there and make it a nicer colour. Can't say pink's much nicer, but never mind. Right, so all I've done, I've got exactly what I had before. All I've done is put my artboard at the top. Now, it's actually got the notes inside it, which I don't want, but it does need to be towards the top. It definitely, if I put that down at the bottom, my thumbnail would look like that. But as long as I have my artboard at the top, and what I did with it was just call it template in capitals, so I know I can delete it. You could actually even do that. Make sure people understand, just delete it. It's only there to give it a thumbnail, right? And then you go to File, Export as Template, and you stick it in that folder, which it will move from. No, we'll make a liar out of me then. Right, so it's called Untitled, and we'll call that my template. Put it in there. Close that down. Don't need to save it. Should have saved it as a template. File New. And there's my template at the bottom. So a little bit of a devious little trick. I just didn't like the way it showed it. Maybe for most people it's a front cover of something, but for me, because there's multiple artboards, it just looks scraggy. So I changed it and did that with it. So there you go. Right, one last thing for me to look at before I head off into some freebies is, let's come out of here and let's go back into Publisher. And we'll make a MacBites magazine, I think. You've all gone very quiet now. Is your mind blown by my deviousness? Right, let's get a new one. File New. We'll have a MacBites magazine from our templates. MacBites magazine. Right, and I've got a lot of pages to fill. A lot of pages to fill. Right, this is something new. If you go into View and you go to Studio, inside the Studio, new panel stock. And it's Unsplash. Now, the first time you go into it, you will see this, which is why I haven't gone any further. Oh, you like that? Debbie and Kim like that. Excellent. Right, I'm just going to take a quick screenshot of that because it automatically has the tick in it. I didn't take it any further just so I could show you that. But basically, you're going to be searching for stock, and there's a few ways that you can search. Unsplash, Pexels, or Pixabay. They all have the tick in, but you've not actually done a search yet. So we'll start off with Unsplash, seeing as that's the one it wants. Right, so MacBites, how about we look for podcasting? Oh, and they've got mixers and all kinds of stuff. Oh, my current view. That one is actually very similar to my current view. So it gives you some information, gives you the cities, etc., where it came from, and you can just use that as you would like. They are all free stock sites. The fact that they're integrated is just amazing. Now, you can't see that too well at the moment because there's a whole group thing going on there. I'm presuming that you're aware that there is this button up here, which is a toggle preview mode. It looks like a windscreen wiper. If you click on that, it will take away all of the nastiness. And the other way to do that is Control and W, which I use all the time. I don't usually have that button up there, but I use that all the time. So that's one of those. And then what, of course, you would do, because there aren't that many images there, are there? You can then go to the other ones and put podcasting in and have a look at the other two services. So let's see what that one's got. Doesn't look like that's got much at all. Nothing's coming back. Should I try something like dog? Something that's simple. No, I've got nothing coming back there, despite the fact I've said I understand. So let's try again. Yes, I understand. Dog. That's not working well. Let's try the third one. Excellent. Oh, look at those. I'm going to have to put Samoyed in. Got to be done. Got to be done. Oh, look. Oh, that looks like our baby. That's not a Samoyed. That is not a Samoyed. But most of those are Samoyeds. Let's find one that looks like Maya or Lola. Oh, look at those cheeky faces. That looks like Maya when he was a baby. I don't think that one looks much like a dog either. Let's put that one there. That one looks quite big, doesn't it? Where's it stuck it? Where's it stuck it? Whoa, where have you gone? Let me get that dog again. Come on, put it on that page. There we go. There we go. So let's select that and zoom into it. So it's as simple as that. That one does look particular. In fact, if I didn't know better, I would say that was Maya. And when Mike sees it, he will totally agree, because that there is what's called a show handle. And it's when you keep them on a very short leash in the show ring. Obviously, Maya never went anywhere near the show ring. What we used to do was use it to grab him on the way past because he had no sense whatsoever. So he wore that all his life, but he went through about 6 of them. He would just chew on them. They're leather and he liked chewing on them. So that one does look very, very, very much like Maya. So that was just showing you the stock panel that you've now got, which is a lot easier. If you remember back, I said to you, when I come to my work with my images, I'm like, they're in the downloads folder, they're in this folder, they're in that folder, and it's a pain. This way, you're dragging them straight in there, and it will observe your preference, which was, do you want them linked or do you want them embedded? Now, just in case you're like, yes, but how does that work? In the document menu, you have 3 managers. You have the section manager, the font manager, and the resource manager. Section manager, as the name implies, is for managing sections within your documents. The font manager is incredibly useful, as I found when I had to do a replacement job on a font. It will show you the fonts that are in use, and I needed to make sure that a font that had been in use was no longer in use. So with the font manager, it will list what fonts are in there and what the status is and if they're being substituted. So that came in very useful. But the one we're interested in is the resource manager, which is showing you that we have 2 images in there and they are embedded. And the reason they're embedded, if you remember, is when I started making this template, at the very beginning in the presets section, there was an option there that said prefer linked or prefer embedded. And I said prefer embedded. And that is why they are embedded. However, let's just save this file and we'll put it on the desktop. And we'll call it dogs because the dog images are in it. You see how it doesn't like to go where I tell it to go. Right. Now, I said that if you started with embedded and then realised the error of your ways and decided that no, that wasn't the best idea you've ever had, you can export them. Well, you can. You can make them linked. So just hit the make linked and then you choose a folder. So on my desktop with my file, if I put linked files, or linked content is probably a better way of putting it, and I put them in there. Are you still saying? There you go, link content. See, it's twanged back. Mind of its own. Mind of its own. Right, link content on the desktop and put in link. It will take those files out and put them in that folder on the desktop. So now my actual Affinity Publisher file will be smaller and my images will be out on the desktop. So I'm going to save that, close it down, and show you that in here, in the link content, there are my 2 Unsplash photos. There you go. Right, so that was stock. So what I'm going to do now is give you a very sneak preview of what's happening next, which is Freebies. Freebies is coming next. Oh yes, you're still not working, are you? One day I'll explain what's going on here. It's just chaotic. Right, freebies. This week's freebies, all of a certain kind, but fabulous. And it's because one of the major new features of Affinity Publisher is the ability to open InDesign files. Now, you may think to yourself, never used InDesign, don't care, have no files I want to open, doesn't matter. But the thing is, you can get 1,000,000 times more stock files of Adobe InDesign templates than you can Affinity Publisher. So what this additional feature gives you is it opens up an entirely new world for you, that you will be able to go virtually anywhere online and pick up an InDesign template for free and open it in Affinity Publisher and use it. The fidelity is amazing. So what I thought I'd do in Freebies this week is show you a huge selection of freebies, all to do with InDesign. So let's get into a browser. Now, I had these all open in a browser. The first place I started, of course, was Envato Elements. And I wanted to know what they had. Now, this isn't a free service. This is a stock service that I pay for. My rationale for going here first was I thought, right, I need to see, do they have InDesign files? Now, I'm going to get a little bit more detailed about the type of InDesign files, but for the moment, just humour me. InDesign. I wanted to see how many files they had that Affinity Publisher could now use, and the answer to that was 5,545. Which I thought was a good amount to get started with. So if I click on see more, all kinds of stuff, flyers, brochures, CVs, reports, travel magazines, you name it. Some very nice CVs in here. Must be very popular for CVs. So all kinds of stuff, but obviously these are free for me because I pay a monthly subscription, but they would not be free for you. So my next port of call was free. Completely free. So what I did in Elements was I went looking for one particular type I'm going to use. So I'm going to come back to that one. But in the meantime, these are some free sites where you can get some amazing InDesign templates, all completely free, all of which you can use in Affinity Publisher. So the first one is stockindesign.com. And up there, you've got templates in all different categories. So newsletters, proposals, portfolios, you name it. Some of those are paid for. There is a cart there. But you have free templates. And in the free templates, they're not too shabby. Look at these. These are really nice. So what they tend to do is show you some templates. They are completely free. So these ones here are fairly plain, actually, aren't they? They're planner templates. But something like that business brochure, let's open that up in another page. As you go down, what you'll find is dotted amongst the free ones are things like these, which is 10 corporate flyers. And then underneath it says 10 free, but there's a $29 option if you want more advanced stuff. So that's how they're making their money from these. But you can see these are pretty decent. These are very good. And all of the ones that I have tried have opened absolutely perfectly. This is good news. This is really good news. So we're going to have a look at some of these after Mike strutted his stuff. But what I'm showing you here is that these are actually absolutely free. So the first one is stockindesign.com. This was the brochure one that I picked. And you see it says free download for free. Or you can join and pay $49 a year and download anything that you want. But it has actually downloaded that. It's up there in my downloads. The next one is bestinDesignTemplates.com. And again, they've got a whole range of templates, all categorized: brochures, magazines, catalogs, flyers, you name it. They even have data merge ones because Excel does data merge. That's what I'm waiting for in Publisher. Oh, my life will be complete when that happens, I can assure you. But let's have a look at the newsletter ones and see what they've got. So they even got grading on them. Good grief. Political. No, nothing political. But there you go. Lots of different. And remember, these are just starting points for you. But what will come through with these is everything that is inside the InDesign file. So it's not just that it's going to bring in the fact it's A4 and you're done. It will bring in all the images, the text, the styles, the headers, the layouts, the lot. The whole thing will come in. And another one is InDesignSkills.com. Now that one's got tutorials as well, but obviously the tutorials are for InDesign and they are not for Affinity Publisher. But all of the content, which is books, brochures, resumes, magazines and business cards, all there for you to use. Now I think it was this one that I looked at magazines and I thought there were a couple of those that I really like the look of and that I could use as a demo. There they are. That foodie magazine I thought would be a good one. So we'll come back to that in part 2. Then there is Design Freebies, and I've filtered down to InDesign templates. And you can see there is a recipe book template, a portfolio, again, cover letters and CVs, basically anything that you could possibly want. Even calendars going back to 2016. Who wouldn't want a 2016 calendar? So again, Mike's putting all of these into the chat and we will put them underneath the video for people on catch up. Just give us about 24 hours to do that. This was the one I actually downloaded and opened up and made sure everything worked, which was 8 CVs. And they were all perfect. Absolutely every one of them was perfect. That was another one that I looked at, another 5 CVs, and I downloaded that one as well. Right, another free site is Pagefilia. I've gone down to the templates page, but Pagefilia is actually a site where they do data merge. So these are their free templates. So you can see their photo book templates and all kinds of stuff. So again, just a completely different place for you to go and get different ideas from. Then you've got InDesign Free. It doesn't like that one, does it? Let's say wait. That one was more advanced. This was a template that I looked at. No, this one was pagination. This one, that's right. This one did some data merge with data. And even HubSpot, you may have heard of HubSpot. I downloaded the ebooks from HubSpot and they were very nice. So there should be a link in there to those as well. Right, so that was the freebies. Next thing I need to do is elegantly, which is going to be difficult considering that my shortcut's acting up, elegantly attempt to hand over to Mike. We've also had the stuff out of the building, which means you're going to need to be awake, people, and tell me how his levels are. We don't want him screeching, do we? And we don't want him too quiet that you can't hear him. So I am going to attempt to elegantly hand over to Mike. I can usually get his video far faster than I can get his audio. So let's get his video going. And then let's go and deal with his audio. Oh, we can see Excel, Mike, the excitement. Right, do you want to give me a how now brown cow? That looks absolutely fine.
His face was white as snow.
They'll all be distraught that they didn't actually hear the Mary Had a Little Lamb bit.
Mary had a little lamb.
There you go. You've heard it now, so I'm going to hand over to Mike. Let me know how his audio is.
And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
You could possibly talk a smidgen louder.
Okay, I'll talk a smidgen louder.
I turn you up a bit, but then you start getting too loud.
Stephen says I'm looking good.
Ooh.
I hope he means sounding good.
I I'm sure he does.
I'm looking good and sounding quiet, apparently.
Are you?
That's what Stephen says. Sounding quiet and looking good. I'll talk a little louder.
I think that's about right according to my levels.
Okay, well, let's go for it, and you can tell me. Still muted. Now better. Okay. Stephen, turn yourself up. Right, anybody who saw the screenshot that I posted in Slack this morning will know what Sparklines are, and Jonathan said he found they were rather cool. Basically, a sparkline is a small chart without the axes, without the bells and whistles, a very plain chart, and it's really designed just to show a variance over time. So in this example here, you can see it's a variance in income, revenue, over a period of months. I've put the sparkline charts right next to the data that they are representing so that it makes some kind of sense. Sparklines are not the property of Microsoft. The idea came from a guy called Edward Tufte, who is one of these data visualization gurus. And Microsoft added Sparklines to Excel in version 2010. So what I'm going to show you here is a few examples of creating sparklines. So what they do. They spark joy, they certainly do, Neil. Okay, so now you've seen what they are in a completed spreadsheet. Let's go over and have a look at how to build them. So I'm going to start by selecting just the data I want to include in the sparklines, not including the totals. Then go to Insert. And by the way, I'm using Excel for Windows here, but it works exactly the same on the Mac. Go to Insert, and over to the right, we have the Sparkline section. We have the line, we have the column, and we have a win-loss, which doesn't refer to Manchester United. I'll show you what win-loss is shortly. So let's start with a line. Click on line, and what it's done is it said, okay, you've selected a range of cells that have got numbers in. I'm going to assume that that is the data range. Where do you want the sparklines to be placed? And here I'm creating one sparkline chart that shows those numbers. I can put the sparkline chart literally anywhere, but I'm going to put it right next to the data that it's representing. Click OK, and there's my sparkline chart. Now, I can leave it very, very plain like that, or I can click on it and I can do things like add markers, like that. The sparkline chart is actually in Excel embedded in a cell, so if I click on that cell and I try and press the delete key to get rid of it, nothing happens. If you want to get rid of a sparkline, then you have to click into the cell that the sparkline is in, go up to the sparkline tab and click on clear. So although it is embedded in the cell, you could actually put something into that cell and the sparkline chart sits on top of it. It doesn't look very neat, but it can be done. Other things you might want to do, you might want to amend the column width, you might want to amend the row height. That will change the size and the shape of the sparkline chart, but obviously that will also affect other things on that column and other things on that row. So let's just undo that. And if you want to change the colour of the sparkline chart, go up to Sparkline, and you can either choose one of those predefined styles, or you can go up to Sparkline Colour and choose a colour, and Marker Colour, Markers, and choose a colour. And the sparkline charts will, as you'd expect, update when the data that it's representing updates. Okay, so that's a simple example of a sparkline. But I want to create another 4 sparklines, one to represent those, one to represent those, and so on. And each of those sparklines is going to go in those 4 cells. And I'll do column sparklines this time. I could create them one at a time. Just select that data and then insert sparkline, stick it there, choose column, and I'm done. But you can also create a group of sparklines, and to do that, select all the data, so all the rows, all the columns, go to insert, choose line or column as appropriate. I'll do a column this time so you see something different. And what it's done is it says, okay, the data is coming from B3 to G6. Where do you want the sparklines to go? And you need to select as many rows as there are rows of data selected, and then click on OK. And that actually treats it, although it is 4 separate sparklines, they are treated as one in terms of the formatting. So for example, if I change the colour, it changes the colour of them all. If I change them to be a line sparkline by going to sparkline line, it changes them all. So there are definitely benefits but also downsides of creating a group of sparkline charts. So that's basic sparklines. Let's go and look at another use of sparklines. What I've got here is a load of data. Sales of ice cream. I've probably used this spreadsheet before in other demos. I've got 2 pivot tables that I've created to summarize the data. So this is a kind of dashboard. And what I want to do is put some sparkline charts there and some sparkline charts there to summarize the data in those 2 pivot tables. So I want to show the different flavors, banana chocolate, mint chocolate, etc. And I want to show 1 sparkline per flavor for the 5 months. So what I've done is I've replicated those flavor names and just literally copied and pasted down there. Then I'll do exactly what I did before. So just because it's a pivot table, just because it's a different layout, just because it's a different example, it's not going to work any differently. Select all that data. Yes, I could do them one at a time, but I might as well do them in one go. Then click on Insert, click on Line, choose where I want to put the sparklines, and click on OK. And there's my sparklines. Let's make them a little bit neater and easier to read just by adding markers to them. And you can then look at those sparklines. You can see that banana went up. You don't get the details. Yes, you could work it out from the markers, but the idea is to get an overview, a trend. So you can see that banana went up and then dipped. Chocolate, sales of chocolate ice cream has been up and down all year. Mint started quite low and has gone up throughout the year. Let's do another one. We've got this data here showing the revenue per month for the different methods that people can order our product. So I'll select that data there. Insert, let's again do a line, sparkline. Where do we want the sparklines to go? Let's stick them there, click OK, and job done. You can either leave them without the markers or with the markers. The final type of sparkline chart we'll look at is a win-loss sparkline chart. And basically, win-loss, the idea is that you have numbers in cells. And those numbers are actually in some hidden columns. If I just unhide columns C to G, what I've done is I've put a -1 if the sales team didn't beat the target and a +1 if they did. But they could actually be real sales figures. So if the team A in January didn't reach the target, then we put the actual amount of money that they didn't reach the target with. And if they did reach the target and overachieve in February, instead of a 1, we could put the actual amount of money in there. So I'll re-hide those. What I want to do is I want to show which I'm doing here, whether the team beat the target or not. And I'm doing it by taking these no's and yeses, which have been generated with an if formula, and I'm going to represent those as reds or greens. They don't have to be reds or greens, they can be any colour. You just specify the colour through the settings of the Sparkline. And we've got no's and yeses there. I've just made a little key. So let me show you how I can do that on this one. Just before I do, actually, there is the football one that I promised I would show you. So it can be anything where you've got negative and positive numbers. So what I've done here is I've hidden the actual data and used if functions to display an L or a W for a win or a loss. But let's have a look at how to do it. So they here are the actual numbers, the actual cash flow. So it's not sales this time, it's cash flow. So each division, each month, have they made a profit or have they not made a profit? So how do we do it? Well, exactly like we did before, select all of that data, go to Insert, but this time choose a win-loss chart. Select where you want the charts to go, so there's going to be 5 of them, click OK, and there's my charts. If you want to change the colour, select all the cells, and then go and choose a different colour scheme. So, like that, for example. Now, let's say I decided to hide that data. If you hide the data, and this is true of Sparkline charts, but it's also true of normal charts. If you hide the data, then any charts that are based on that data will not be shown. So what we have to do, the charts are still there in those cells. What we have to do is select those cells, go to Sparkline, then go up to Edit Data and go to Hidden and Empty Cells. And tick the box that says Show Data in Hidden Rows and Columns. And now we have it back. So there are different ways of creating Sparkline charts. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to see if there are any questions.
Not on Excel.
Not on Excel.
No.
Okay, well I'll stop there and I'll hand back to you for more Affinity.
Excellent.
Because it seems that that's what people want tonight.
But, oh hang on, I've got that open as well, it'll very strange that. It's all very well thinking that, but we've got some Excel and Affinity loving each other magic coming up, sure.
Oh, Excel Affinity loving.
Yes. A loving with Excel it is. Right, okay, back to me. Excellent. Right, I'm going back into Affinity. Slight break, little hiatus. So we are heading straight back into part 2. Right, I had to split it up. There's so much of it. Right, so in the second half, we get more detailed. So coffees, everybody, and let's get into it. Right. I am going to start with those templates that we looked at, which was, where's Firefox gone? Where's Firefox? Firefox, wasn't it? There we go. These templates that we looked at. I have pre-downloaded them, but you see that button where it says download for free? I just hit that button. And I got them in here. Right. Oh, I'm hearing from Eve Tonic 3. Using Designer and Photo for work, a senior graphics designer. Menus, digital menus, packaging, you name it. Oh, Affinity's fantastic, isn't it? It really is amazing. I must admit, I struggled for years. A love-hate relationship. I love to hate it with Illustrator. It's a wonderfully powerful app, but it drove me mad. Designer, just amazing. Between the two, let me know if anybody else has done this. Between the two, I use Sketch. And the only reason that I stopped using Sketch, they went subscription and all weird. Very weird. You could only have one activation and all kinds of stuff. But Sketch was very good. I then transitioned from Sketch into Affinity Designer, taking what I'd learnt from Sketch. And actually, Affinity Designer is incredibly much more powerful. It's just that a lot of people don't see it if they're working on, not particularly the stuff that you're doing as a senior graphic designer, more UI, UX. They love Sketch. But I found Affinity Designer far more powerful. Right, so these are the templates that I downloaded. You already have the links to go and get them all. The only one that I hadn't downloaded was my coffee mags. So I'll go download my coffee mags. I'm going to need that shortly. So I will download that. So those are where I got them from, and these are the ones that I've opened here. So we can have a look at them. Now, when you download one, this is the kind of thing you get. So InDesign Skills, Magazine Template, Fashion. And I double clicked it. And it gives you that folder. You open it up and this is what you've got inside it. So first of all, you've got your license, which is fairly self-evident. Then you've got your how to download the fonts, and it gives you the links. It tells you the name of the fonts you're going to need, and it gives you the links to go and get them. And they're from Font Squirrel, so they're free. A lot of these templates do try to use free fonts and free images. There's also how to download the high res. Now, from this one, these are from Deposit Photo, which is not free, but obviously you'd probably be putting your own images in anyway. Then you've got a folder, which in this case happens to be called Fashion Magazine Template, but will be called whatever it is. And you open that up and then you've got some files inside it. Now, pretty much these will look the same, apart from the name, in any one of these. So you have at the top fashion.idml and fashion.indd. And then you've got a folder that says links. And in there, you have the images that have been used. Now, that links folder is somewhat reminiscent of this linked contents folder. Because when you open it, it's got the images inside that file. So it's exactly the same. I just called it link content, and in here it's called links. Now, the very first thing to be aware of, not all InDesign files are equal. And although we're talking about them as a starting point and we want to use the term template, the files we're actually talking about are not InDesign template files. Heaven forbid we go down that route. The two file types that we're looking at are INDDs and IDMLs. So if I double click this InDesign file, the INDD, it will open up in InDesign because I happen to have InDesign. At great expense, I seem to recall. And it'll take its sweet time. You know, by this time, you've done half your day's work, haven't you, in Affinity? But it will get there in the end. It will moan, probably, about fired links. What it's talking about here, and you won't see this, obviously, if you're not opening this up in InDesign, but there is a reason why you may want to open it up in InDesign if you have access to InDesign. So let's just open it up first and worry about the detail later. But what it's saying is there are issues with links. 9 of them have been modified. The reason that you will see this is because sometimes it uses absolute paths, but it should be able to find them because it's going to look for a folder called links near to the document. So I should be able to update that, and it should then just open it up. Right, the next thing it's complaining about is all of the fonts. And it's saying it couldn't find any matching fonts. So unless I go find the fonts, it's going to replace them with defaults, etc. It very much depends on the font. If it's a paid-for font and Typekit have it, then with a Creative Cloud subscription, you would be able to activate them. But it's likely with your Affinity stuff you wouldn't, so you're going to need to know what fonts they are and then use that. But I'm just going to say close that and let's get on with it. It actually tells you here where the fonts are as well. So that is opening up that file in InDesign. I was never a great fan of InDesign either. Look at it. Complicated, horrific. But that is what it looks like. And the reason that I'm showing you this is so you can see what level of fidelity you've got when you open it in Affinity. But the first thing to think about is this file was an INDD. We'll minimize that and we will go back and there is another file. You'll notice that the INDD is 3.1 meg and the IDML is 132k. So there's a massive difference between the two. If I open up that file, it may complain about fonts again. It does, but let's close them down. But it looks very, very similar to the first file we opened. So what's the difference? And the difference is an INDD file is a more modern InDesign file, whereas an IDML file is like a markup file that will let you switch from InDesign to other applications. There are not many applications that can actually directly open an INDD, but increasingly applications can open the IDMLs. Okay, so that's the first thing to think about. Not all these files are equal, but you can see when you open them, they look identical. So although there are two different file types, one is for ultimate compatibility. So if I actually go up there and I do a save as, when you're saving something out of InDesign, you have these options. An InDesign 2020 document, an InDesign 2020 template, which we are not thinking about at all, and a CS4 or later IDML file. So IDML probably doesn't support the most recent innovations in InDesign, but 99% of what you want to come through seems to come through from my experience with it. So those are the different file types, and that's important when we come to look for them. So I'm going to close that down now. We'll go back into there later. We'll need to do one thing, but at the moment we don't need to do anything with it. So what does that mean for us as Affinity Publisher users? Well, you can ignore the INDD because it won't open it. So if we click on that and the right click, open with, it will only give me two options, and even then I'm not quite sure how I've got two versions of InDesign installed. It's a mystery to me. But it will only offer me InDesign. It will not be able to find anything else to open them. Whereas, if I click on the IDML file, right click, open with, Affinity Publisher is listed. Affinity Publisher is there saying, I know how to read that, pick me, pick me. So we'll pick Affinity Publisher. That is all there is to doing it, as long as you have an IDML file. So I get the warning about the fonts. This time, instead of leaving me high and dry, it takes me to a font manager and I can go do something with it. So I can substitute it for this, I can choose the substitution style, etc. I'm going to use that preview so we can actually see it and scroll through it. And you can see it is pretty good. It's not a case that you open it up and 95% of it is missing. I would say you've got 99% fidelity there, if not more. The only thing that I've noticed is to do with the fonts. So for instance, this one here, I don't think that should be bleeding over the red. I'd imagine it should be in the white, which is easily done if we just take it up there. If you need it lower down, then you're going to have to narrow it off, but you get the idea. But you've got your transparency coming through, you've got your images coming through, you've got text coming through, everything, your layouts, footers, headers, the whole bit. Everything is there. So I think that's pretty good. All I did with that was just find an IDML file and open it. There was no magic involved. All I did was open it. Now, what you do have in here, what comes through with it? Well, obviously, your text is coming through, your images are coming through, the layouts, the pages. The other thing that we're going to be going deep dive on next week is styles. And yes, your styles come through. Let me take this down a bit. I tend to use all the monitors when I'm working. Right, so we've got no style and basic, but we also have article subheadings and column quotes and things. So this one here, that's a column quote. And you could change that to wanted and back to a column quote. Or do all kinds of weirdy things with it that wouldn't look good. So the styles come through with it, which is very impressive. You may be wondering why that one, as opposed to... No, they all have. That's hideous. It has lots of red dots on it. It's indicating there's more text in there. That'll be to do with the fact I need the right fonts to get a perfect layout. But just showing you what actually does come through with it, and it's pretty amazing. Now, it is that simple as long as you've got the IDML file. But where are you going to get the IDML file? Well, most of those sites that I pointed you to, when you download it, your templates, you get that, and you will get both of them. So don't freak out if the INDD doesn't open. It's the IDML that you need. As I've said, they are not templates, so any changes that you make to that... So let's go into Publisher, and I have made some changes. When I go to File Save, you know, not File Save As, File Save, it asks me to save it as an Affinity Publisher file. So I will stick that on the desktop as fashion. And now you're working in a native Affinity Publisher file. So really, in a way, although they're not actually official InDesign template files, which is an INT something, as far as you're concerned, once you've opened it in Affinity Publisher, it basically is, because you're going to write it out when you start making your changes, to be an Affinity Publisher file, a native Affinity Publisher file. Okay, so far so good. Right, your next problem's going to be if you open something up, or you need to open something up, and you do not have an IDML file. I think Jonathan's nodded off. Let's open up this and see what we've got. But Jonathan had this very problem. He had some files, InDesign files, got so excited when it said it supports the opening of InDesign files, and then realised it only supports a specific kind of InDesign file, which, guess what, was not the file format that Jonathan had. I said how many of these files are we talking about, and he only had a few, and I said, well, I'll convert them. If you know somebody with InDesign, you're good to go. If you don't, you could take a trial or ask a friend. So in here, you can see we do actually have both. So we've got this coffee magazine, and I would want A4, and we could just open it straight away as an InDesign, an IDML file. But let's go the tricky way, and let's imagine that that doesn't exist. Oh dear. Right, open up in InDesign. So if you have InDesign, or a trial of InDesign, or a friend has InDesign, or you have InDesign at work, then this is going to be the quickest way to do it. Open it up in InDesign. There it is. Never mind all of this. And, oh dear, it's complicated, yuck, isn't it? It's opened up in preview mode by the look of it. But I don't care, because I'm not going to do anything with it in here. All I'm going to do is say File Save As. So I've opened it up in a copy of InDesign, and on the Format menu here, I'm going to say IDML and stick it on the desktop. And that's it. So when Jonathan sent me the files, that's all I did. Open them, File Save As, done. That was it. So it's that simple if you've got a copy of InDesign, or you can purloin one from somewhere. What you will end up with here is an InDesign markup file. So let's open that from there. Oh dear, I double clicked it. That's going to open it up in InDesign. Oh, well, when it's finished chugging away with itself. All right, come on. At least it doesn't take as long to start as it used to. That used to be agonising. Mind you, it's not far off, is it? Go on, let me close you down. I am not going to double click ever again. Come on, close. Oh, it's gone black on the right now as well. It's getting very narky with me, isn't it? No, I don't want you to save it. Right, let's click, which is what I should have done, and choose to open that with Affinity Publisher. Right. There's probably no difference between that and the other one that was there. You'll see it's got some missing fonts, and obviously the graphics aren't there either. Now, this one's actually a good one for me to show you some of the things that you will face. So it gives me a layout, a coffee layout, which is good. I'll put my own photos in it. Now, what I'm doing is I'm wandering round, and I'm wondering, you see, you've got blue handles. There are blue handles everywhere. That's good. What we don't want is red handles, and I have seen a few with red handles. I think there was one on the first page. There's one with red handles. Oh, now they've gone blue. Usually red handles means there is overset text. There's text that's not showing. So that's just things to be aware of. But other than that, it's brought in exactly what you need it to bring in. And I'm just wondering where my styles have gone. I must have closed that down, which wasn't the wisest move I've ever made. Let's go to the studio and get the text styles. There's the text styles. And you can see all of the styles that it's brought in with it. So there's a lot of styles in this one. But everything's come through. So really, the bit with InDesign, in terms of it opens InDesign files, there isn't actually much left for you to do. But what I will do, I will close this one, and I'll go and get some of the others that I've downloaded, because some of them needed a little bit of help. Not in terms of the translation. Was it in this one? Where did I put you? A little bit of help just in terms of the layout. So let's have a look at those ebook ones. These came in two formats. So there was a collection of InDesign files in both IDML and INDDs, 6 of them. But if you don't have anything, then there's always the PowerPoint ones that it included with it as well. So in here, I would just right click and open that again with Affinity Publisher. The ones that gave me the most trouble in terms of layouts were CVs, and it was the font size, and it made it that you couldn't see everything. But that was the only issue. It was not a huge issue. Now at the top it's saying loading one document. I presume this is a fairly complicated document, but it did open before. So unless I've worn out the machine, which I could well have done, there you go. There's a creative ebook. So it needs another font, which I'm not going to worry about now. I'll go into preview mode and you can see what you get. So a good few pages, table of contents. There we go. Lots of pictures that you can actually use, I do believe, and an entire layout for a document or a report or whatever you want to create with it, including, in this case, although it does say section header and it says second title, one thing to think about when you're downloading these templates from other sources is, do they include the styles? And in this case, they don't. They're just formatted. They are not styles. But it's all there if you want to make it a style. So just like you saw me do before, if that's your section header and you want it to be a style, it's very simple to do that. Just put section header. Don't worry about anything else. We'll be doing the advanced stuff next week, and now you've got a section header. So if you wanted to apply that somewhere else, like to that introduction, although it shouldn't change the look of it, at the moment it's basic and it's got no style. But if we make that a section header, so just click once to apply it like that. That is good news. Let's just make sure this one's a section header in there. It is. Because the reason you would bother doing that is if I think, don't like that colour, it needs to be a sort of darkish green, a financial green like that. I've changed one. If you look over here on the thumbnails, I've just changed the one, this page that I'm on. But if I go to my style, and I right click and say update the section header, it will update it to green, and when I go to my introduction it will update it. So that's one of the reasons that we use styles. I'm making the point that the quality of what you download in terms of what's inside it, images, fonts, styles, layouts, assets, you name it, the quality of that's going to be incredibly variable depending on where you get it from. But it's very simple to make your own, and take a base template like this and make it your own and make it much better. But it's a good starting point, isn't it? I'd probably want that to be A4 for a start, but it's a good starting point. That's really all that's involved with the InDesign part of it. The key thing to realise is that there's two file types, INDDs and IDMLs. IDMLs is the one that you want. When you open that in Affinity Publisher, you'll be prompted to save it as Affinity Publisher, and you can forget InDesign ever existed, which is probably a good idea for a lot of people. And the other thing to think about is if you do find yourself in the position of having an INDD, which any file in the last 5 to 6 years, that's the default format. So unless somebody's actually made the effort to save it in the more compatible format, you could find, if you're going to request an InDesign file, or somebody says, I'll send you an InDesign file, ask them to make it an IDML, and then you will be able to open it and take the file from there and work forwards with it. And that's all there is to it. So while that was one of the biggest things that they discussed and announced, that was one of the easiest things to work with. That's not actually difficult. But it's a huge thing in terms of the number of free resources online it opens up for you to be able to use. You will never be short of a template once you've done that. Okay, so let's close that one down and let's go on to the next bit. So one of those things that we looked at, one of those things that I downloaded, which is probably in the downloads folder, is that it? Yes, the coffee magazine one, this one. The coffee magazine. Now, there's no photos in it, but not a problem. I want the A4 one, and I want to open that, obviously, in Affinity Publisher. Now, it's got a lot of layouts. Obviously, I'm going to need to make changes to that if I want that to make that my own. But a good starting point. So, I am... Why has everything moved on my other screen? There we go. So in here, I've got some pictures. So I'm presuming that you know how images work. But what I've got in here is a range of coffee images. Lots and lots of coffee images. I seem to have more than one of some of them. Why would that happen? Nope, they don't seem like they're the same image. So I've got all these images that are coffee images. And what I'd like to do is obviously make this look better and get some of them in there. So that'd be a good start, wouldn't it? Right, if I go inside Affinity Publisher and I go to Place, then I can go and get some images, then we can start making some magic with this. Which was in here. No, we weren't. You're twanging back again. Mind of own. Right, here's my demo files for tonight, and it's this one. No, it wasn't, was it? No, it was my coffee images. There's my coffee images, so let's grab those. So what I've done, File, Place, select them all, and then say Open. You may or may not have seen this before. I've demoed it before, but you may have missed it. When you do that with multiple images, it loads your cursor. So if you look around my cursor there, you can see it's got this kind of downward facing arrow, and the cursor's loaded from the side, which is a panel called Place Images. And what is going to pop on that page is whichever one I have selected over here. So basically, which one of these do I want? That one doesn't look good, does it? In fact, some of these do not look good. Right, which one of these do I want for the cover? And I'm thinking that one would look quite nice for the cover. So I make sure that that's selected and has the blue frame around it, and then go back to my document. And I can either click to just add it, or I can actually draw it out. So let's draw it out. And then go back and sort it out. Now you'll notice, one, it's far too big and I need to position it properly. But you'll also notice that my cursor's still loaded. It's going to allow me to add the rest of the images. So I could actually go down here and think, well, what do I want in that frame there? Maybe on that one, that blue one would work. So I might want to put that image there. I'm going to go back and position that correctly later, but this is what you can do when you choose Place an Image. So we'll pick that one and we'll just pop that over there. Just put that in there. You were supposed to have done. Let's use the beans and worry about it later. Right, once you've got enough images, so I'll pop that one over there and maybe put some more or lose that. Once you've done that, then you can go back to your other tool and that panel disappears. Right, so let me go back to the top here and have a look what I would like to do with that. Now it needs to be, it's in the wrong order and it's far too big for a start. But I am going to need it, the height of it and the bleed. So I'll take it up to the bottom. I do believe it is. And then what I would do is I would crop that down so it matched the page. Well, the page and the bleed. There we go, that bit's right. And that bit over there. That is a vector crop, and we've got the cover done. We would have. Come on, there we go. Perfect. Now, obviously, layers not right at the moment. And my layers, I think I turned my layers off as well, which again wasn't the brightest move. Layers, come on. My layers I keep with my textiles because I use those all the time. Right, so basically what's happened is, this is my cover background, that just needs to go underneath there. Then we've got that on the top. There's our coffee at the top. Now, this is the one that I was saying to you, sometimes you get when you import these things, because remember that where this came from, this was an InDesign file, and I can't read that too well. So what I'd like to do is put something like that on there and put a gradient in it. I never put a gradient in the middle because that's where the sizing handle is. And it drives me insane when it puts it there. So let's put that on there. I want it to be white, I think, to have that behind it. But I want to take that down like that. So really so I can see it. So let's move that down so we've got something for that to sit on. Something like that should do-ish. Actually, that's going to give us a hard edge there. Let's leave it like that. And then maybe scale it if we need to, like that. And obviously that's only going to work if we put it in the right place. So let's make sure it's behind it, but above the image. And now we can see it. Right, so when I click on this, I've got a red dot. And a red dot means there's more text in there that it can't display. If I hit that, which is the red eyeball, you can see what that extra bit is. It's the bit that says magazine. So that's what's wrong with it. That is unplaced. Now I could do that by maybe making that bigger. And then at the back of it, I've got another one, but that is the yellow. So in InDesign, it must have been 2 text blocks offset from one another. What would you do with that in Affinity Publisher? Let's make sure everybody is awake. Is there a better way to do that in Affinity Publisher rather than have these 2 things floating over the top of one another? So if I do that, solves the problem. The red dots disappear, the red eyeball disappears. It's now saying there's no text that we can't see, but that's what the problem was. My issue with this is if I move that, so I'll just move that, oh dear, it's moving independent of the brown one. Obviously this one here, this layer, is the yellow, and that is the brown. And one option would be to select them and group them. But are you all awake? What's the better way to do that if you were in Affinity Publisher? It may have exported it like this for compatibility purposes. So I'm not saying that InDesign isn't intelligent. It may have done that for compatibility. But what would you do in Publisher? There's a better way. What feature would you use in Publisher to get the same effect? So while you have a think about that, I'll show you down here. Here's more red dots. So to fix the red dots, you need to click on it and make sure that there is actually a need to worry about it being a red dot. In that one, it might not be, but you saw the 7 twang back. So all you need to do is to go through these things and just make sure that you've got no red dots, that everything's lying over it perfectly. So with that one, I'd probably take it up to the edge, the frame, make it a bit bigger. I'd probably make that one smaller, put some text around it. But all of this is just layout, isn't it? Whatever you want to create with it. Right, I'm getting no response to what is better than that. Well, what you can do in here, that's the brown one. Let's make sure that's the brown one. That's the brown one, so let's turn the yellow one off. But that's the brown one, and in Affinity Publisher, it uses all of exactly the same tools as Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo. In fact, it has Studio Link. So at the top, if you needed to do something that Affinity Publisher didn't directly support, all you need to do is to just hit Affinity Designer, and your document that you're working on stays in the middle, but you are now surrounded by the interface of Affinity Designer. But you don't even need to do that because Affinity Publisher does actually support what you need to do here with this, which is it has down at the bottom of the layers panel, the layers effects. And one of those is an outer shadow. Now that wasn't really an outer shadow, was it? If we put an outer shadow on it, it just kind of looks hazy. Let's just add a very offensive outer shadow. It just kind of looks hazy. But there are things that you can do with this. So at the moment it's set to multiply, which is a blend mode, and it's set to black and stuff like that. Now, it wasn't black, was it? It was yellow. So if we make it yellow, but we just make it normal. I'm loving that, Alex. Get rid of the yellow and put a better colour there instead. Well, luckily, once we've done it this way, it won't matter what the colour is. Right, but we've got a yellow and we can just see it. I'm trying to make it so there we go, we can see it. But it doesn't look quite the same, does it? Mind you, it didn't look great to start with. But we're trying to replicate it completely because that's what the client wants. Right, you can do it from in here. Choose the colour, set the blend mode to normal. The opacity would need to be 100% because you don't want it semi-transparent. Then all you need to think about, you don't need to worry about the radius, you want it as sharp as possible. Intensity-wise, that probably isn't going to make much difference in this circumstance. It's the offset that you need to think about. So you could have it really offset, or you could have it looking a little bit better where it's not quite so offset at all. But It was probably more than that, wasn't it? About there. Right, let's close that and turn on the other one. It's not far off. Not far off. But that way, you only have one layer and an effect on it. Why is that a benefit? What's the huge benefit of that? Oh, you're racking your brains now, aren't you? You see, the way it was before with 2 layers, if you wanted to have a heading similar to that on another page, like on the back page here. So from that first page where we've got coffee mags, let's say we take the brown. No, let's take the yellow one. Let's take the yellow one. Only because that hasn't got anything on it. Right, take that, put that in here. And turn it on. But let's not make it yellow. Let's pretend it's the brown. So let's make it brown. Oh, dark brown. That'll do nicely. Right, so let's just say we're going to have that saying thank you. Thank you for reading. Right. Oh, I see. All right. If you change the font, we won't have to realign it. Absolutely. If you change the size of it, you don't have to treat it as a group or anything. But it's even better than that. All right. If we go back up to here, the brown one, which is the one that's got it on, which is in here somewhere. There it is, that brown one with an effect. If I just copy that, so I've just Command and C, and then go down to the other one, where my text is already waiting, in there I can select that and then say Edit, Paste Effect. And it will paste the yellow onto it without me having to play around trying to think, oh, how far did I move it? And what was the exact colour and what were the settings? You can copy an object, the whole object, and then go to another object and just paste the effect from the first object. Nothing else changes, just the effect. So the way that that's come through is not actually as effective from InDesign. It's not actually as effective as you could make it in Affinity Publisher. So when you start with these InDesign files, they're all very well, but you could actually make them better. Right, that was just a quick aside on that. This is the coffee magazine. Right, let's get a page. A page something like that one. And I probably wouldn't want all of these things in the way. And I need to make a little bit of room. So let's make some room there. And of course we would have lots and lots of lovely coffee pictures, wouldn't we? But I want 2 pages here, all about coffee. A lot about coffee tonight, hasn't there, Mike? To do magic with.
Not that we drink.
No, we don't drink coffee. I don't drink coffee at all. And Mike gave it up when he met me, because otherwise he'd have to be in a hermetically sealed bubble. Oh, can't abide the smell of coffee. Right. So I've got a coffee magazine and I want to put some data in it. Mike's gone to sleep. No, Mike's not gone to sleep. No, he's not. He's wide awake. Right. What I'm going to do with this then, I need to put in the sales data. So where am I going to get the sales data from? Well, let's get that out of the way. You can copy and paste. That's the good news. You can copy and paste from all over the place. But remember that file place command. We go to file place, but this time we're not placing, where have you gone? We're not placing images. This time we're placing Excel data. This data will look familiar. It's the data Mike's just used. It's the finished version of his Sparklines. And I'm just going to open it. How cool is that? What I've got in my place images, now I think that needs to be renamed place content because now it's doing more. It's loaded in the Excel file. And more than that, it's loaded in the data from the Excel file. So all I need to do here, I've got exactly the same cursor, but this time, and I draw it out, I'm actually drawing out Mike's data. Or I was in rehearsals. Mike, where's the data gone? Okay, I will try with that one. Oh, why is the data not coming through to this one? Or is it put it in white text again? It would drive me insane. Have you put it in white text? It's saying there's no colour in the it's saying there's nothing in that at all. Oh, how bizarre. Okay, not to worry. I have another file. You will have noticed that before. Behind here in my Excel thing, I had a rough coffee mock-up, or a coffee rough mock-up, whatever, which was an Affinity file. So let's open that one. There was what I did before. So let's put it into this file. It could well be there's some styles in the first one that it's got incredibly giddy with because it came from an InDesign thing. So this file in Publisher started life in Publisher. And obviously the data's at the bottom, which is no good to man nor beast because you need to see me put it in. But if I add 2 more pages and I go to this and I copy this bit of content, which is the sales and the targets, like that, and I paste them onto my page ready. Let's try it again with this file. So file place, and it was my Sparklines file, open. And this time it's actually working beautifully because I can see all of them. So let's take this first one. And that was the one that I threw in there. There's my data. So obviously something wrong with styles in the other one. But there's my first one, and I think the second one I used was this one, which was the win-loss complete something or other. Not that I wasn't paying any attention, but that one. There you go. So first off, it will bring the data in. That's the first thing. It's not live linked, don't get excited, but it will bring it in. It will also let you edit it and format it better. So let's go in and do that. So this isn't bad. I said to Mike when I looked at it, that's not bad. But what's going on here? There's a blank row. And I said, did you have a blank row in it? And he did for layout. So I can delete that one. Don't need that one. The next thing I said was, well, yeah, you probably had this aligned to the bottom as well. And he agreed. He did. So with it selected and the text up here, instead of having it at the bottom aligned, I centered it vertically. Not bad at all. Then I thought to myself, one of my bugbears here, good night Marcus, is when stuff's not aligned properly. Well, you've seen the alignment can be solved. So if I take all of those, I can center align those. So the headings are right there. Over here, one of my big concerns. Well, for a start, the text is actually quite big, isn't it? So let's change the font from 14 to maybe 12. So it looks a little bit neater. And then over here, if I do that, it's very close to the edge on the left-hand side, and the figures are very close to the right-hand edge on the right edge. So let's go in there and grab the first set, and what you can do in here on the cell, so I'm in the table panel, and I've opened the cell disclosure triangle, down to left, and I can bump that in by 2 millimeters. And I could do the same on all of these. Now, have they got, let's have a look if they all need it, or is it just one? I would say only the end one needs it, so it doesn't look like it's hanging off the end. But if I take that and put 2 mil on the right, now it starts to pull together and look great. And you're not limited to just changing the font size and stuff. Up here, if I decided that background needed to be a bit darker, you can just go in and change it. So make that much darker so it's more coffee-ish. And you can change the font. So, why has that gone to that colour? I'm going to make that yellow. A much brighter yellow here. There we go. Not green. Like that. So you can reformat to your heart's content. This is now a native Affinity Publisher table. The thing is, the data was all calculated and correct as it came out of Excel. Right, in relation to that, the sales heading font, that's my font. That is Zapfino. And you will have seen that font. You might not think you will have done, but you have. There you go. It's my font. The one that you see on my training. Zapfino. Love that font. Right, sales. Now, the other one needs a little bit of help. This, you'll notice that I've got a big gap on this one. And I said, did you have a blank cell? Again, blank column. No, this was where he had his little Sparklines. So they're not supported. But what you can do is delete that column, which tightens it up a bit. You can narrow down that one, give you a better layout, narrow down that one. So you think of it in terms of, these are now native feature tables. So anything that you could do before, I must admit, I did find that tricky. I don't know why, but when you're trying to scoot down that last one, it doesn't scoot down easy. When you do that, it does them all. And all I wanted to do was just narrow it down. And see, it took like 4 or 5 goes. It's done that twice. I don't know why. Now, this one's wrapping the heading because that's merged cells. So that needs changing and everything needs to be... Font size isn't too bad, but this font up here is probably a bit too big. The other thing is you might actually just want to take that off there and not actually have that there, because if you don't, then the tables will line up neatly. And what you could do then is put some text underneath. So just put a little text box underneath, like a caption, and just paste it in there, which is useless, isn't it, at that point? It's actually pasted in all kinds of... I don't want it in 2 columns. There we go. I only want 1 column in there. Where's my columns? Where's my columns gone? Everything moves when you change the res of your screen. Usually they're at the other end. Right, so in that case, I would probably want that to be not yellow. I would probably want that to be grey-ish. Just so it's not quite in your face. Certainly don't want it bold. Oh, 8 to 10, maybe 9 would do, and make it italic. So it's more of a caption underneath. Now, that would then need lining up a bit. And, yeah, we need to take those, just like we did before, put the left in a bit. Don't need to do anything with the right. And then up there, if you wanted to make that a darker colour, go up to the cell, go to the swatches. You've got the colour that you've used before. Go up to the brown, which is the text. Stop flashing on and off. And choose the yellow. And that probably isn't bold. That's probably what's wrong with it. There we go. So 2 Excel tables. Hello, Paul. Good to have you with us. Always, always better late than never. We are deep into Affinity Publisher and we've merged some Excel data with it. Oh, how good is that? And then probably centre that somehow and move that with it wherever that needs to be. Like that. So it's not just linking in with InDesign. It's not just opening InDesign files. Now it's actually hooking into data that can come from spreadsheets. Now, if Excel is not where your data comes from, fear not, because you can always export from other spreadsheets in Excel format and then bring it in. And if the format isn't quite right, you've seen what you can do at this end to make the format look much, much better. In fact, I think I made a better job of that the second time than I did the first. Yeah, not bad. Yeah, I think it looks much better with that underneath. So I will save that file and come out of there. Right, let's go up to the next one. Oh, we've got 2 really strong ones to finish with here. Right, first of all, who heard in the update, who has read the print off the blog post about smart master pages? Ooh, who read about that? And if you did you know what they were? Or did you have to read the small print of it? Smart master pages. Obviously, we have master pages up here. There's nothing smart about that one. It's completely blank. I'm asking because I'll ask a supplemental question. Who has ever used PowerPoint before or Keynote? Mike's giving me a yes. He's used both. Who has ever used PowerPoint or Keynote before? Because rather than come in here and it can be... Oh, Alex didn't get that far. That's okay. You're going to understand it in 10 minutes. Honestly. Right. If I was to start explaining it in here, you'd be getting confused. You would. But if I explain it in relation to something that you already understand, you'll be like, oh, that's easy. So let's go into PowerPoint. I prefer Keynote, but let's go into PowerPoint. Doesn't matter. They both work exactly the same. Now, I'm going to start off with just any old template. So Madison's there in front of me. I'll just click that and go into the file. Right. This is my subtitle. So my subtitle would probably be Elaine Giles Presents. Right. And then add a title. And my title would be My Really Good Presentation. If I could spell instead of peasant. Presentation. There we go. Right. And then, of course, you add content to it, don't you? So you add in a slide. So add a new slide. It automatically puts that type in and you put a title. So Oh, well, let's keep in with this really advanced thing of my first slide. This is going to be a brilliant presentation, isn't it? And we'll add another one, and this is going to be my second slide. Are you with me so far? Right. Now, what's she playing in PowerPoint for, you're thinking? The reason is many people instinctively understand this. The behaviour I'm going to show you is exactly what they expect. In fact, if it didn't happen, they'd be really peeved. So in here, you have a design section, and you saw that Madison. Within Madison, there are different themes. So there's Madison, but you've also got within the theme box, Atlas and Gallery and all kinds of stuff. You also have within Madison, this bit here, these are all Madison, but they're all different colours. You would not expect that content to vanish if I made it a different colour. And you'd be right. It didn't move. Excellent. But these up here are not. The ones on the left are different templates. They're not just different colours, which the ones on the right are. These are actually completely different templates. So surely if I applied one of these, the content would vanish. Let's try it. Oh, look at that. Now, I think if it did, you'd be really peeved. In fact, no one would use PowerPoint if that happened. But if you look, it's moved my text block there. It's moved my presents. It's put my first slide, which was on the right, to the left, and it's reformatted it all. What you've just seen there is exactly what a smart master does. That's all it is. Now, if I were to say with this slide here, where I've got my title and my subtitle, what if I changed that? What if I wanted to change the layout from being a title slide to being a section header? Ooh, my stuff's still there, but one's moved to the left and one's moved to the right. Awesome. So far, so good. But what if I move it? What if I change it and I want it to be title only? Well, actually, this is still hovering around, which is very unusual. It will disappear at some point. I'm determined to get rid of it. Now, you see, it's put it now as a heading of the first column, which isn't really where it needs to be at all. But you'll notice what the point I'm making with this is, you don't lose the content, it just flies around the document. And that is what a master, a smart master in Affinity Designer, in Affinity Publisher. So let's have a look at it. Right, we're going to start completely from scratch, make it simple. So we'll do an A4 document again, and we'll add a few pages in. Any good if we don't add a few pages in. Let's add 7 pages after page 1. Right. So let's go back to our coffee images, our lovely coffee images, because we're going to need some images and some text. So I'm just going to randomly pick a nice image to bring in on my page. So let's say with this, I want to do a layout, maybe an index or something like that, but I want to put that there as being the first story. And then I want to go and get another one for the second story and put that underneath. That same size? Don't think you are, but you're near enough. You're near enough. Right. And one more for good measure. My poor machine is creaking at the seams. I can hear it going. It's all these images. Right. Now, most people, when they do layouts, do it like this. They start like that, and the images are on the page. Oh, those two matched. Can we get you matching? Near enough. Right. There we go. So a nice layout. That's what most people do. But if you do that every time, it would make sense to have a kind of index master, wouldn't it? That would make sense. So go up to the masters and make a new master. So I'm calling this, that's master B, but we'll call it TOC, table of contents. And okay, and that puts this there. It's another blank page, but what we can do now is we can use these shapes that we have here, which, there you go, picture frame tool, rectangle. So we can do that and actually put in where we would like the images to be. Now, at the minute you can't see that. I tend to put a colour in it so I can. I tend to put a very pale grey in it so I can see that. I like it looking like that. And then put my other one over there. Or what I could do, make sure they are the right size, is just copy it. And I could have those touching the edges like that. So I'm building up what I would like my table of contents page to look like. And I would like it to look like that in terms of picture, 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 and then maybe some text. So let's put some text in. Let's go get a text box and put some text in there. That little text box there. And then let's duplicate. Can we duplicate that? Doesn't seem to like that. Let's copy it and put another one in. We still got one up there? We do, and we've got one down there. Right, so let's put those so they are in the middle. Down a fraction. Come on. That'll do. And copy again down to there. And finally down to there. Now, at this stage, I know you can't see these, but I'm going to click on the link and I'm going to make sure that the text flows from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4. Awesome. In fact, do you know what? I'm not, because that's going to cause problems. It will do in relation to what I'm actually showing you. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. Right. Let's not do that. Okay. So I've got my 4 pictures and my 4 text boxes. Right, you know what I want to happen now, don't you? Right, I need to use that as my layout. So let's apply the table of contents onto page 3 and 4. And there we go. Right, so I'm going to drag some images into them. Hopefully that will work wonderfully. There we go. Drag some images in. It's a boring bit, isn't it? Adding images in. Drag, drop. There we go. And text, well, you know I had some text. I only really need a tiny bit of text in there. All I need is that it would have some numbers in it. But I'm just going to put some lorem ipsum in there. Like that. Just so you can see that there is actually text in the box. But what I'll do is I'll put an extra little paragraph at the bottom, which to say that that was paragraph 3. And that was paragraph 2. And that is paragraph 1. And I've nicked a full stop there. Naughty, naughty me. And the last one being paragraph 4. It will become apparent why I am doing that, so we can actually track it. Okay. Now, at that point, any changes that I make in here will be on this page. What happens if I make changes up here? Anybody know what happens? What if I grabbed that and moved it up there? Well, looky at that, it moves. So that's one way of changing multiple pages based on a master, but it gets better than that. So I'm back up here and I've undone that. Okay, so what we've got down here is one particular look for a table of contents. But let's say I want to provide an alternative. That would be good. Trying to think of the best way to... Yes, I think I will do this first, and then it will all make sense. Or would it? I've done this and it works. I'm just thinking about the best way to explain it. Sometimes it's easier to see it happen and then explain it, but I'm going to have to explain it first and then you'll see it happen. But you have seen it happen with PowerPoint. What we want to happen is that the look of the table of contents page, this one, gets totally changed by magic with a smart master. So let's create a smart master. Right, you start your smart master with the first master that you've got, this one. And what you need to do is to look at the layers. We have 4 picture frames and 4 text frames. And as you click on each one, it will show you which is which. So that's text frame 4. In fact, I seem to have 5. That's curious. Oh, I seem to have 2 in the same place. Let's delete one. Now I've got 4. So we have 4, 3, 2, 1. And images, we have 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, these at the moment are just called picture frame and frame text, and that's it. But you can, of course, name them. So that could be image 1, and that one is image 2. Now, is there much point in doing this usually in a template? Who's going to answer me that? In a master page, is there really much point in doing this? Does anybody ever bother with it? Hint, I don't. Right, text 1, text 2. Does anybody else bother to do that? Are you all awake? The magic's about to happen. Right, and text 4. Okay. Does anybody ever bother doing that? Well, I have done. They are now all named. That's the first part of making a master a smart master. What I'll then do is go and make a completely new master. So this is my alternative table of contents. So I may be working with a client who, as per usual, cannot make their minds up, and they know they want 4 images and they know they want some text, but not necessarily where. So let's say in here we design a completely different look for it. We could do it where we have an image at the top like that. And I see Kim's like me, try to name everything, keeps your mind straight. Trouble is you're bound to forget one. Or if you're me, you're bound to forget one. Right, so I've got an image, which I'm going to use that lovely little faded grey colour, just so I can see it. That's a bit much. There we go. That's my first image. Well, what I'm going to do for the second one is have that very close over there and put those in the middle. Then some room for text, but then at the bottom have 2 more images. So this is my alternative layout for that. Room for text in the middle, graphics at the top, graphics at the bottom. So I need my text blocks. So we'll go put the first one of those in. No, not that one. Not that one. I need a text frame. So put that in there. Right width and right height. So that actually matches. So I will duplicate, duplicate and duplicate. You can see I've got 4 of them. Grab the second one and move that over there. Grab that one and move it down. About there maybe, a bit lower. Where were you? That's right. You lined up with that and duplicate. Take that one there. Are you lined up with the left? Hopefully you all are. Hopefully they're lined up, although they don't look it. That's lined up, isn't it? That's lined up. That one is, and that one is. Okay, so now I've got my 4 images. Now, here's what normally happens. You should be able to tell me this. If I were to go to this page, let's get my layers out of the way. Go to this page, which we've already applied the TOC master to, and I were to apply the alternative TOC, that's actually working. Well, give or take it is, not quite. Not quite. It shouldn't be unless I've named it properly. It shouldn't be. So let's just undo that and go back here, because good practice is that shouldn't have worked. That ruins my demo. It shouldn't have worked. Right, in here, I need to name these. So which one's number 1? Well, that one's image 1. Notice I'm using exactly the same names. Now that one isn't image 2. As far as I'm concerned, that is image 3. That's why stuff wasn't appearing in quite the right place. This one is image 2. So let's put that one in. And that one is image 4. The ordering in the layer stack makes no difference. This one should be text 1. And this one, did I call them text? Or did I call them text frame? Nope, I call them text. Awesome. That one is indeed text 2. That one is text 3. And that one is text 4. Now, clearly, I did not try that without renaming them. And clearly, it does sort of work. It's dangerous, though, because you have no control over the placement unless they're named the same. So we now know that these are named correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4 for the images, and 1, 2, 3, 4 for the text. So now what should happen, I drag the alternative table of contents over to the page. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4. And the images are also bang on right. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is what a Smart Master is. I would take the time and name everything properly, because otherwise you'll be looking at it and thinking it would be very difficult if I hadn't put the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4 to work out which of those was right. Oh, Paul, you've just missed the bit, the unveiling of the Smart Master. It's just a way really for you to organise it. So like Kim says, name everything. If humanly possible, name everything. If you're deciding that you're not going to name certain things because, you know, they're just a flash or something, your future self will not like you. Just saying. I don't always name everything, but I do try to name the big things. If I'm making a group of something, so maybe I'm doing a planner layout. I make digital planners. So if I were to have 30 lines on a page, I would be... I wouldn't want to sit there in line 1, line 2, line 3. They're just lines. Obviously, good practice, name them. But if you haven't got the time for that, just name the group lines. And then at least you've got a head start on it. But that is what a Smart Master is. And you can have as many of those as you want. And they can be wholly different as well. So what we've done with that one, it's fairly basic in terms of colour, isn't it? But there'd be nothing to stop us in here. Let's go to here, get a rectangle, put a nice colour behind it, not the grey. Really wants us to use that grey, doesn't it? But we don't want that. We want the salmony one, and put that at the back. And that comes through to the page. So on that one, it's very plain. No, that wasn't the one we were doing. It was here, wasn't it? Hang on, let me get the other one. That one, very plain. Other one, lots of colour. So they can be as different as you like. So in here you could have flashes, you could have all sorts. You could make different ones for different months if you're doing something like that. Think I'll get a rectangle and I'll do it that way. Something like that with a nice red fill. Get that over here. And it could be sort of, like I'm saying, a month or something like that. So put that on there. That could go across to the other page because you could be doing all kinds of magic on the other page with it. Whatever you need. Let me get that flash on it. I'm going to get a flash on it. Let's do that. I'm holding the Shift key down to make sure that it only goes to 45 degrees. Grab that, put that up there. That's actually sitting on top of the image. So let's try and get that lined up a bit. Then go and get some text. And we'll put, no, not in there. I want text outside there. Let's put exclusive. And of course that's far, far, far too big and far, far the wrong colour. Take that down to white. Make that much smaller. And rotate it again, holding the Shift key down to make sure it's 45 degrees. That is not what I want to do. There we go, and drag that over there. And it's not applied to there yet, but if you now drag this one on, you've got a whole different look to the magazine, but your content goes with it. Can we see how to make a digital planner? Yeah, of course you can. Should we do that next week? We've got styles in Affinity Publisher. We've got the Scrivener workflow, and I can certainly do a digital planner. Yeah, I use it with GoodNotes and Notability. I know Graham uses Notability. You're a GoodNotes boy, aren't you, Mike? When you can be bothered. He says he's a paper boy. He's a Surface boy. Yeah, I can certainly show you that. I can quickly show you one that I've done, which was fairly basic, but open. I could do so much more now, and I will. Right, go on, you can twang back now. You can twang back to where all my stuff is. Now, what did I call it? Would I have called it planner? Oh, no, oh, no, that won't even... Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, let's have a look. Meeting notes, I think I had one. Notability's got lovely text, pen use with it, and its text is far better than I ever get with GoodNotes, but I kind of keep going back to GoodNotes. GoodNotes has got very good file management, but the files are huge. I thought it was in... here we go, Cornell Notes. Here we go, all kinds of stuff. There was my Cornell Notes, which was literally just that. Let's get that out of the way. But they work fantastically well on the iPad. So, yeah, more than happy to show you how to do all of that. I'll have a think about that in the week. That would be good, that. Right, so any questions about the... where were we? We were in this one, weren't we? Any questions about the Smart Masters? Before we head on, I do think that is the last thing. Yeah? No, we've got one more. Oh, fear not, we've got one more. But it's the last one for Affinity Publisher. So any questions, put them in there. Deb, I'm as bad as you. I've got so many notes apps, it's unbelievable. But I have managed to curtail myself. But I do still need the ability to actually handwrite notes from time to time. So I'm between sort of GoodNotes and Notability, depending on what I'm actually doing. But Notability has amazing text capabilities, and GoodNotes is rubbish. GoodNotes is terrible with text. Okay, let's save that file. I am going to have to close some of these down. So what was that? That was Smart Masters. There we go, Smart Masters. Let's lose that. Let's lose that. I guess I could save that. Clearly I had not saved it, but now I have. And there was that one, which I do believe I saved because that was the one we needed to go to. Right, okay, that one's gone away. The other big thing that they have announced, and you saw today, you actually saw this. I'm going to take you back in the presentation. It was when I nearly had an apoplectic fit, which I think was when we were back, wasn't it? It was the Tuesday. Or was it before we went? Oh, it was this. Right, it was this that was the problem. That, when my phone died a death. Did you think how I managed to capture that image? And that one. And that one. And that one. I used something that I've used Photoshop for years and years and years, which is Smart Objects. So I downloaded Mike Wakey, there's a link for this. I downloaded a file, which was the iPhone 11 PSD mockup file. When I opened it, it had all the iPhones in all of the colours, in all of the sizes. So there was a black one, there was a green one, there was a purple one, a red one, a white one. I didn't even know they did a yellow one. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Right, so it had all of them in it. So that's the iPhone 11 and it's a mock-up. You'll see in the middle it says replace with your masterpiece. Okay, so let's have a look how that actually works. Let's use the red one because we'll really see the red one, won't we? Right, so I'm going to double click that and it will open in Photoshop. And I'm opening it in Photoshop to show you because you can download millions of these off the net. And the problem's been they've not been greatly supported in Affinity. But in Photoshop, what you get here is more interface than Canvas, but that's by the by. Right, what you get in here is it's a smart object in there. So in this case, that's not actually that smart, is it? But there are smart objects, basically. Do you know, I'm wondering if that one is a smart object because I did one and it was a smart object. And I'm wondering if that one is or isn't a smart object. Let me have a look. Oh, I'm not getting it from there, am I? Oh, convert to smart object. Okay. Right, now it's a smart object. Okay, that's a smart object. It could well be the screen needs to be a smart object. But a smart object means it's an embedded thing and you can open it, make changes to it there. So it's actually opened it up as a separate file, a PSB, which is an embedded file. You make changes to it and then when you go back to there, it updates it. That's the idea. That's the idea. So I'm going to save that file and come out of that and let's have a look what happens when we attempt to open it with Affinity Photo. Let's get it open in Affinity Photo. Hopefully it's Photo you're supposed to do this with. I'm sure they all support it, but let's open it in Photo. Because the other thing that I've downloaded is Light-A, which is a wallpaper, because I wanted it I wanted a mock-up, which you saw, which was the one with the arrows on, which was that one. And I wanted the phone to actually have a screen on it, even though I just wanted the phone to have a screen on it. So that was the point. So I've got the wallpaper as well. So in here, what we now have, it's opened it up. You get a lot more canvas area, don't you, in photo? It's got the background, which you can toggle off if you want it transparent, which I did. It's got the body of the phone, which, yeah, you can toggle it off, but it wouldn't mean anything. Neil, I don't think you should tap that. Oh, I love the chat. Right, and there's the screen, and the screen was the smart object. Okay, so it's your UI. When you look in there, it's your UI. What I wanted to do was put mine in it. Now, I actually have my file. So let's get that in there. And we may need to open up mine, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's copy that wallpaper. Now, if I stuck my wallpaper in there, it's not done a great job with that. It's put it in as text. I have no idea why it's done that. Okay, let's undo that. Right, you are there. I know you are. Right, got it. Hopefully that'll do it. Okay. If I put that in there like that, obviously not the best look we've ever seen. It's not constrained in any way, in the way it should be. It's also far too big. But we can put it in there and move it. Right, technically speaking, if we put that in there, it automatically constrains it to the smart object in Photoshop. Now, with it in there, where's the edges of it? Can we... I don't want that. I don't want that. I want that. Right. With it inside there, you can scale it. So you can get that positioned absolutely perfectly. But notice what happens. You can even go outside the edges and it's not spilling over. That is the point of a smart object in Photoshop. There has been a way to do this with a sort of hybrid approach with Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer. My results have been erratic at best. This seems to work. So what you've got here is if you put that background, the wallpaper, outside of the smart object, you see the corners. There you go. But if you put it inside the smart object, you don't. It clips to it. And that is exactly what a smart object does, and it's now supported in here. I'm just wondering if that's supported in the others. I'm sure it would be, but that we've opened is actually a Photoshop file. So what that means for you is that you can get a whole range of Photoshop mock-ups, and now you can edit them in Affinity Photo, which is huge. That's huge. I'm loving that. So that's one wallpaper. What I then did was I wanted this look, which was that one. So I wanted it to look, I didn't want a black background because that would look like it was totally dead. You wouldn't be able to see anything against the black background behind the phone. But I wanted something inside the phone that was like a very dark browny grey type colour. And then I needed the Apple logo. And this was how I did that. All I did in here was add a shape. And it doesn't matter how big it is or what colour it is. Go in and change the colours. I wanted a kind of deepish brownish colour, so we'll start with that and change it. That's what we'll do. Right. Where are we in here? Come on. Where's my other paletty thing? Oh, I'll tell you what, we'll make it my purpley colour. I have mine a kind of puce purpley colour. Sort of like that, but a little bit more alive. So I had that, and the other thing I had was some text. Literally just some text. So I'm going to draw that out there, letter A. Only for me, it wasn't a letter A. I changed that to be American typewriter. And I needed to, and I don't really know why. Right, I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to use a magic key. The magic key is Option-Shift-K. And Option-Shift-K gives you the Apple logo as text. So it's vector. I can scale it. I can colour it. Obviously, I made it white. It was rebooting and made it smaller like that and put it in the middle. Now, obviously, problem we still have, purple covering the phone, not good. But if I move the purple so it's inside, it clips it to it, and there's the Apple logo on the outside, and that was how I did it. So that's another thing that they've added. So they have been amazing in what they've provided free of charge in the 1.8 update. You are very welcome, Mr. Cats and Dogs, and I am loving that name, Mr. Cats and Dogs. We love dogs here, as you know. In fact, Mike loves cats. I've never really had the opportunity with a cat. I always wanted a dog. And we've got a dog now. We're very blessed. We are indeed. Okay, so questions. You think about some questions while I do a wrap up, and then we'll discuss other things. But that's the end of the actual demonstration. Let me find my slides, because I've got stuff that's not working properly here, as you can imagine. Okay, let's get into here, because this is important. Next show is a week on Saturday. That's a week tomorrow, the 7th of March. Sorry about that and all, but Paul will be thrilled because he won't be coming home from work. We've got a Saturday show on the 7th and a Saturday show on the 14th. So 2 Saturday shows. Good night, Alex. We are going to cover, we already know what we're going to cover because we've had requests. Mike, make sure that planner thing gets captured somewhere before I forget. But we have been requested to cover styles in Affinity Publisher from soup to nuts. The other thing that's kind of semi-related to that is people want to start working in Scrivener and transfer the styles into Affinity Publisher. So we're going to do that as well. And now I'm going to show you how to make planner pages effectively in Publisher. So those are 3 things that we're going to do. Okay, so that's what's coming up that week. If you have enjoyed it, we love you guys, and if you love us, could you give us a like, please? It makes a huge difference. We had a big laugh a couple of weeks back on Valentine's Day when we got 2 dislikes during the show, and you guys were like, oh, are they mad? What I thought was, and we've had a dislike tonight as well. That was probably when we went into something else. Oh, but never mind. What I thought was funny about the Valentine's one was we got 14 likes and 2 dislikes, which made it the 14th of the 2nd. So it was all meant to be. Now, if you want more information about all things Affinity-ish, you need to be subscribed to my newsletter, which is elainegiles.com/VIP. On there, you will get things about Affinity and all my design stuff. If you are interested in more things MacBites and Apple, then you need to be subscribed to macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. And we send out reminders on both of them. They do tend to be slightly different, but if you're on both, you won't miss that we're on live, let's put it like that. And if you'd like to chat between shows, we have a Slack channel. And it's been alive this week with questions and chat, and it's been brilliant. If you don't know about Slack, it works on the phone, it works on desktop, in a browser. You can get subscribed at macbites.co.uk. It's not subscribed, is it? It's join. You can join us at macbites.co.uk/Slack. I have to be careful saying that. And that's where we carry on the conversation. So it's questions, it's suggestions, anything really that you want to talk about. I'm liking that, Graham. Hit the wrong button. The buttons need to be bigger, is what we're going to say then. Okay. I don't mind. If people can't abide, whatever. If your life's that sad, you've got to put a dislike on it. My pity is with you. So we're going to be back next Saturday on the 7th. And that's what we're going to be doing. What did we enjoy while we were away? Far too much very nice dessert. It was ice cream for me and lots of lovely stuff for Mike. Mainly, did you have a cheesecake?
Yeah, I did.
There was a cheesecake on the first night with ice cream, and then there was pavlova twice with ice cream. So he enjoyed himself greatly. And Toblerone. Not the big Toblerone, don't worry, we're still working out how we're going to approach the big Toblerone.
Do a live unbox.
We're going to do some kind of unboxing with the Toblerone, definitely. We dare not leave that where Lola is at the moment. She's sniffing at stuff. What has she been like this week? I only wish I'd managed to get a picture of her with she's got a rope. Her skin sister got it for her, and she ripped the head off this thing. It had a pig's head on it. She ripped the head off the thing. It's now just a dirty rope with a knot in it. It's filthy. So she was going out like a little princess, wasn't she, for a good few months. She's now in the garden with this muddy rope, swinging it from side to side, and the knot on the end is hitting her on the head. She comes in, she was absolutely black. Her whole head was covered in mud. And Mike said, she's becoming a bit of a boy, smiled and walked off. And did we clean her? No, we let her do it herself. She was fine. Magnum. Magnum's one of my favourites, I must admit. They didn't have Magnum when we were away. It was salted caramel, and they put it with some chocolate drop things which were vile. So no, don't eat chocolate. But the last night it was with what was it? Meringue. A little bit like an Eton mess. It had meringue in it. Yes. Kim's too good. Oh, Kim. Yeah, news next week. Always depending on the coronavirus, obviously this. Dental appointment. It's that time again. Is it really 3 months since the last one? Since she was poking me with that stick. That dental probe thing. Ugh. Really don't like that. I'm not looking forward to that, actually. But maybe it'll all be shut down with the coronavirus. Who knows? Who knows? So what's everybody else up to this week? Have we got anything else planned? I think I've blocked this week off as some peace and quiet at last. That was my intention anyway. Of course, you're heading into work, aren't you? Yeah, not good. Not good. Oh, I've got to go for gold stars, haven't I, Kim? I'm going to have to be very, very good between now and then. Like eating thin air and stuff. Yeah, because last time it was just the hygienist. This time it's the hygienist and the dentist. I'm hoping he's got his hands full, because the last I heard they were having a baby. So he may not know one end of the world from the other at the moment. It would be about 2.5 months, I think. So we'll see what happens with that one. Maybe I should just take gifts and try and bribe him that way. I need gold stars, because if I don't get gold stars, I can't possibly appear on the show, can I? Definitely not. Absolutely not. So anyway, are you loving the update, and how useful was that, going over it all? Hopefully the comparison between PowerPoint and Affinity Publisher made it make a lot of sense. It's basically shuffling the content from one layout to another. And I like that, but I can't see that I would use it a lot. I do actually. He'd appreciate that. He's trying to go iPad only. He's got a MacBook Pro. And he had an iPad, but he wanted to upgrade his iPad and he wanted to go iPad only. But I don't think that's going to work well, because he's got a fantastic camera that he uses to take before and after photos, and it only talks to a computer and not an iPad. So I'll see how he's going with that as well. Now, funny you should say that. Last time, must have been about a year ago. About a year ago, he mailed me after my appointment and said, sorry to bother you. And it was a technical question. So I went back and I was telling him about Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer and Affinity Publisher. But Publisher was in beta, but I was saying Affinity Photo is a really good alternative and it works on the iPad. Oh, is he giddy? He's bought them. So he's an honorary MacBites after hours person, because he has bought the Affinity apps based on my recommendation. Which is always good, isn't it? I will take that with me and I will show him. I will explain it. I thought we do a show and that came up. I mean, it had everything. That photo had absolutely everything. Okay then, so last call for questions. If there are any questions, if you think of any in the week, you know where Slack is. And you can always find me, Twitter. No, not Facebook. Oh, Facebook, I'm so bad. I'm so bad with Facebook. Don't send me a message on Facebook. I've not found the last one yet. I really do struggle with Facebook. It's illogical to me. You can tell I'm not a millennial, can't you? But I'm all right on Twitter, and I'm fine with everything else. We actually had a mail from a guy tonight. Let me go and find his name so I can give him a name check for sending that. This isn't an issue that I have actually seen, but it is on the forum. His name's Trevor. If you're with us, Trevor, hello. Right, Trevor sent a thing in and says he's going to try and see some of the session. But he's got a problem that Publisher crashes when he's trying to open files. And there's a link to, I'll put this in Slack, there's a link to the thread that he's written in the Affinity forum. And he's not the only one. Other people have got this. So if you're having a problem opening files, if Affinity Publisher is crashing on you, you're not alone. It hasn't happened with me. I have opened other files, but I've just not seen it. So I don't know what the commonality is that's making it crash. But thank you very much for sending that in, Trevor. We will look into that. I already had a headache. There's a saga to this. When I've had fruit the last twice, it gave me a headache. But I already had a headache, so I said, give me some fruit. So I had the fruit. The headache didn't go away, but the fruit was very nice. So haven't got a headache tonight. In two minds what to do. Do I have the fruit and risk getting a headache? Or should I decline? Decisions. I'll let you know. I'll let you know in Slack the decision that I made. You're very welcome, John. Very, very welcome indeed. As I say, that's the stuff that goes out on the VIP. This will be available on replay, and that's the other thing that you all wanted to talk about next week, which Mike and I need to talk about first, which is generating some kind of indexed content. Big job. But we'll have a think about it this week, and we'll let you know next week. But that's it for tonight. So it's good night from me.
It's good night from me.
And we'll both see you next time. Night, guys.